Good evening. I'd like to call the September 26, 2024 meeting of the Town Council to order. If you kindly rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, excuse me. We'd like to have Eagle Scout candidate, Peyton Connolly to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I apologize.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Peyton. My apologies. How quickly. Thank God you're here. Wait for Paul. The only announcements I have are upcoming council meetings. Thursday, October 10th, Thursday, October 24th, and Thursday, November 7th, all at 7 p.m., all here in the Matthew Thornton Room.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On Wednesday, October 2nd, we'll be having National Coffee with a Cop Day. Please join us for a chance to ask questions, voice concerns, and get to know your officers. There is no agenda or speeches, just coffee and conversation. The event will run from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. We will soon be finalizing a location, and it will be put out on Facebook and the town's webpage. Join us for a fun day of education at the Merrimack Fire Rescue Open House being held on Saturday, October 5th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Central Fire Station located at 432 Daniel Webster Highway. Events include State Fire Marshal's office with a K-9 demo between 11 and 12, Hazard House and Hazard Kitchen sprinkler trailer, E911 staff, and the E911 staff will have a table set up. Sparky the fire dog, Mac the comfort dog will be there, as well as a car extrication demo and refreshments will also be served. In addition, on Saturday, I wish it was July.
You wanted to be July.
September 29th, the firehouse will be holding the annual car seat. So if you are new or expecting a child and want to learn how to put a car seat in the car, if you're a grandparent, things have changed from when we had kids. They will be showing you how to properly install a car seat in your vehicle. And that runs from 10 to 2, I believe, at the Merrimack Central Fire Station. The next 2024 hazardous waste collection is Saturday, October 5th from 8 a.m. until noon in Nashua at Nashua Public Garage located at 9 Stadium Drive. This is the second to last collection day of the season. And finally, the Parks and Rec Department needs help with a new logo design. The current logo was first introduced in 2014, and since that time, the department has grown both in size and scope of what we offer Merrimack residents, and our feeling is the existing logo will no longer represent what we all do. This is where you, the residents, can come in. We are looking for help to design a new Parks and Rec Department logo, which will be visible on our website, social media pages, documents, apparel, banners, and other related offerings. If your logo design is chosen by the entries submitted, you will be locally recognized in print and on social media, presented with a $50 gift card, receive a $25 Parks and Rec gift certificate, and a t-shirt with your new logo on it. For complete contest details, visit www.merrimackparkswithanS.org. Once again, merrimackparksandrec.org. The deadline to submit the designs is November 1st. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Next on the agenda is comments from the present public. If you'd like to address the council, you could step to the mic or sit at the table. Chuck.
Good evening. Chuck Mower, 4 Depot Street. It's come to my attention that the circumstances by which our media division is financed is changing, and I'm here to encourage you to ameliorate the situation so as to sustain the highest level of service that is possible. That's largely it in a nutshell, but I would like very much to say how important the media division is to the town of Merrimack. I'm sure many people take it for granted. They do an excellent job. I'm sure there are other communities that are envious of what they're capable of undertaking and doing. And so anything that you can do to support that high level of service and their excellence, I think would be in the interests of the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. If there's anybody further? Seeing none. Under recognitions, resignations, and retirements, we have a recognition, a resignation of Jamie Von Schom from the Planning Board. And we have a certificate that we'll be giving to her, and I'll read that into the record here. Presented to Jamie Von Schom, in recognition of your service as a member of the Planning Board, in recognition of your dedication and commitment to public service during your appointment as a member of the Planning Board. Your service and devotion to the Planning Board has had a valuable effect upon the community. We wish to extend to you our sincere appreciation for your outstanding performance of duty, June 2021 to September 2024. Signed on behalf of the council.
Move to accept her resignation with regret.
Motion by Tom,
Second.
second by Nancy Harrington. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 7-0-0. Under appointments, we have our annual review with the Conservation Commission per Town of Merrimack Charter, Article 6, Section 6. At least annually, there should be a review with the Conservation Commission. This agenda item is to highlight the Commission's significant actions, current projects, anticipated actions, and to raise any concerns the council should know about or could act upon. And here's Eric Starr. Good evening. Every time I see you, I see your dad. I'm just saying.
Yeah, sorry, that's the wrong.
It's too clear.
Oh, there it is.
I'm sure he's heard worse.
Yeah. Good evening, Town Council. So I just took over for Chair of the Conservation Commission last annual meeting, so probably July, I believe. So I am still new to this, but I did scout out previous annual reviews, so I think I got a good one here. Now, first, just a basic agenda. I'm going to start by introducing you to all the commission members. Then I'm going to go over the mission. Then just a brief report of the financial situation. Then I'm going to review the 2023 accomplishments that we've had and our goals looking forward to 2024. And then I'm going to give a special thanks and to some of the people who really help us out. And then I'll open up to any questions anyone might have. Now, so commission members, there was me. I'm Eric Starr. I've been on the commission for about 5 years now, I believe. I was elected chair just this past year. I was vice chair the year before that. Our vice chair is Ellen Cobb. She's fantastic. She should be the chair, really, honestly. Two-time Jeopardy champion, just so, I think that's pretty impressive. Then our secretary is Tom Martinson. He's a retired teacher, also very good, very active, handed me a lot of supplies recently that helped me get some work done. Then we have Gage Perry. I believe he's the most experienced member of our commission. Anytime I don't know the answer to a question, which is most of the time, I always go to him, and he always has, he can confidently give me the answer. I don't know if it's always the right answer, but he's very confident in it, so I assume it's right. Karis Welsh, she is relatively new. I think she joined last year. She is great, very smart, very active, and also has a newborn baby who she sometimes brings to the meetings. Good baby too, solid baby. Knows all the answers, asks all the right questions, and doesn't cry. So yeah, great. Andrew Duane, also relatively new to the commission. I think also last year he came on, but very active. He's been on the Wildcat Falls subcommittee for quite a while, so he's very experienced. Steve Perkins was the former chair. He's now been demoted to alternate member, but also a person I rely on to ask a lot of questions. And also been on for maybe 7 years or so. He was on longer than I have. And he was probably chair for about 2 or 3 years, I think. Daniel Melanson, one of our newer members. She's a very capable craftswoman. She's made a lot of benches, and I don't know what her background exactly is, but she's made a lot of high-quality benches and signs. Catherine Legay is our new student rep. I haven't met her yet, but student rep is a brand-new position. She's the first one. And then we have our town council rep, which is Jennifer. Although I would be remiss to not mention Andy, because this is an annual year review, and for actually most of the past year, he's actually been our town council rep. Jennifer's great so far, and Andy was great too before him. No complaints on behalf to the town council. The mission of the commission, so we are outlined in RSA 36-A. So we are responsible for the proper utilization and the protection of the natural and watershed resources in town, including our streams, rivers, forests, wetlands, wildlife habitats, open space, and drinking water resources. And we coordinate activities of unofficial bodies organized for similar purposes, this being mainly our subcommittees. And other means we review and provide recommendations to the NHDES for dredge and fill permits. We review and provide recommendations to planning boards for different building projects within aquifer districts and wellhead protection areas. And we have 1,600 acres of conservation open space land in Merrimack. So our finances. As you can see, we really haven't done much spending. Not many major projects have come up. So our Fund 51 decreased from $49,000 to about $46,000. Our Fund 53 increased from $1.023 million to $1,027,000. And the Horse Hill Nature Preserve Fund went untouched this year, I believe. And I could get into that later, but just to cover it, most of this money was spent on basic infrastructure repair. Actually, I think that comes up next. Right, so some of our main accomplishments this year, one was the replacement and repairs of water levels to prevent beaver dams from creating floods and safety hazards. I believe most of these repairs were done in the Mitchell Woods area. I think it's not too far from Joppa Road, if I'm not mistaken. The company Beaver Solutions, they built us some beaver dams a while back, and every once in a while they'd be repaired, well, not beaver dams, but levelers to prevent beaver dams from causing too much damage. Beavers build dams and they will flood surrounding areas. So since this is on conservation land, we have Beaver Solutions come in and build these neat little devices that prevent them from flooding the local areas. We also repaired a lot of infrastructure at Horse Hill Nature Preserve. We repaired the boardwalk in the area. And in Greater Woods, we repaired an overlook trail, I believe, leaky roof, which I believe they're actually preparing for a wedding. So I think Gage was able to fix that in time before the wedding. So hopefully. And also we made some, I didn't mention here, but we also made some bridge repairs at Wildcat Falls. We held an invasive species cleanup day at Sklar Waterfront Park. At Sklar, there is as well as there is in most conservation areas in Merrimack, a bittersweet problem. Is it bittersweet? Or maybe I'm thinking something else. But so we went out there and we derooted a bunch of invasive plants. If you know anything about invasive plants, you know that it's not just hedge clipping. You have to actually get in the roots and get them out of there, which was a very hard day of work. We did that back in, I want to say June or May. But I like to think we made a pretty big difference, although there is a lot more work to do. We also participated in the typical annual events that we do. The seedling giveaway was a big success this year. The Winter Carnival we had down back in, I think it was March. Had a lot of success there. Had a nice place right next to the DJ and the Marshmallow Pit, so it was a good day. And our annual L-Chip Wasserman Walk, which is a required walk by the state to review the land of Wasserman Park. And we provide a report to the state. We reviewed several building proposals in relation to conservation, stormwater, and public health issues. Probably average maybe one a meeting, I would say. For the most part, people are usually well within regulation. We never had to not recommend a place that I know of, or not recommend to the planning board to not go forward with a project. It's usually just small fixes, replacing hay with straw, and maybe being more specific on things like Green Snow Pro and stormwater management. And finally, and most recently, we prepared trails for the Town Center Trail that just actually had its grand opening today. I was at work at the time, but I know it opened up at 11 a.m. today, rain or shine. And even just yesterday, me and my dad were actually out in Greater Woods on the school property, because we actually just got access to the school property, which is a big part of the Town Center Trail. And we checked to make sure DPW had cleared the trails, which they did a phenomenal job of. And we put up some new trail markers because someone had either torn them down or maybe the trees had just outgrown them. I'm not entirely sure, but so we did just place new trail markers just yesterday. So that trail should be good to go. There's still some more cleaning up we can do, but it's in great condition right now. So our goals and activities planned for 2025. One thing we've been talking about a lot recently in recent meetings is increasing education and outreach opportunities. This is something that I think Karis has really taken handle of, and Andrew and Gage have also been helpful in too as well. Right now, next meeting, we are going to be discussing we're gonna discuss bringing a company in to talk about lawn alternatives. I don't know much about lawn alternatives, but several citizens have actually contacted us saying they would be very interested in having a talk and educational opportunity about these. And we have a few more that are still in the oven at the moment, but a few more education opportunities. And basically just people to come in, teach something about conservation, things you can do at home, and just things that people find very useful. So we have at least 3 in the work right now that I know of, and people are coming up with ideas all the time. They're very enthusiastic about this. Another goal is to resolve the Wildcat Falls parking situation. This is regular every summer. This summer is no different. In Wildcat Falls, it's really only built for somewhere between 12 and 20 cars in that parking lot. So as it gets more and more popular, the Courier Road neighborhood gets filled. Thankfully, with the Town Center Trail, Parks and Rec has been very gracious in working with us, and they would allow us to use Watson Park as the main address for Wildcat Falls, so out-of-towners would be diverted to an area that's more capable of handling the increased traffic flow. This has really been probably my top issue as long as I've been on the commission. It was kind of like the first thing I tackled. And we really haven't had any solutions to it until this Town Center Trail came in. So I really do hope that starting next year, we're going to see a massive reduction, and people of Courier Road and that whole neighborhood can enjoy a summer in peace. And then we're going to maintain and improve the new Town Center Trail. That trail that on our half goes through school property, which we did just get permission to start maintaining that trail from the school. And then after that, it goes on to Department of Transportation land, which we have long had access to and have had permission to maintain. And then it goes to our own land, trail that actually is not on the map, I just found out recently. So we're probably actually going to be making a new map and putting it on the kiosks so that people can see the entire new park as it is. We also want to reduce vandalism at Sklar. That has been probably a problem more at Sklar than other conservation areas, maybe because it's so out of the way, or maybe because it sort of attracts more, the mud attracts ATV people and trucks and things like that. We've tried to put rocks in place to prevent ATVs going on walking trails and thus creating massive divots in the trails. Haven't had much success in that. People are people somehow manage to move these massive boulders with their cars and four-wheelers and things like that. People have been afraid to call the police. I think a lot of people, like me, we don't really want to bring the police in on these situations. We always feel like we're bothering people when we do something like that. But we have informed the subcommittee, there's vandalism, you have to report it, otherwise it's just going to go unnoticed. So hopefully we can find ways to reduce that. Another thing is to regrade the parking lot at Sklar. Probably know it's been done recently. I haven't checked in a few weeks. But parking lot at Sklar is, it's a mess. It's not paved, and we can do temporary fixes that will work for like a year, but the hope is to make a more permanent solution, to make a solid parking lot. It's particularly difficult because we've ever been to Sklar. It goes underneath a train tunnel, and it's a very small area to get through, so I'm not sure how much heavy equipment can get through. So it's a difficult situation. But I would really like to improve the parking lot at Sklar, so hopefully we'll come up with a plan the next year. And finally, overall, to improve our website and our online presence, there's another thing that Karis and Andrew, I believe, have been pretty proactive in. Our website's out of date, has actually some things that are quite literally out of date. I know there was one listing of like commission members that was well out of date. Subcommittee members are pretty outdated. We have lots of room to grow on our website and overall on our social media presence. And I think it's, that's another goal we have for the next year. And finally, I'd just like to give a special thanks to One Community Development. They do everything basically for us. So much so that I don't even know if they do anything outside of the Conservation Commission. I feel like we take up all their time. But they might do something outside of the Conservation Commission. But they've been incredibly helpful. And any questions we have, I could go straight to them. The Department of Public Works, that's an obvious one. Whenever we have a problem, they're right there, especially on the Town Center Trail, because that was like really late. We only just recently got permission from the school to start maintaining that trail, and there was a very small turnaround time between that and opening the trail, and they did a fantastic job. They went above and beyond what even I was expecting them to do. Parks and Recreation, they're always helpful, but especially now, providing us some alleviation for the Wildcat Falls situation is fantastic. The police department, because we always tell people, squeaky wheel gets the grease. When you have legal problems like at maybe Wildcat Falls parking situation and people blocking driveways or people vandalizing Sklar, the police are always there doing everything they can within their power to help the people. The finance department, kind of self-explanatory. Sometimes we have to spend money, and they have the money. I don't really handle much of the finances, though, so I don't actually know the details much. Merrimack TV, they're always helpful on putting things on screens. And I know we've had some conversations about maybe like putting some sort of tour of the conservation areas on Merrimack TV, which would be very interesting to do in the future. And finally, our subcommittees, because we're all volunteers, but they're more voluntary, I think. They take care of the things that we simply don't have the time to take care of. So the people of the Sklar, Greater Woods, Wildcat Falls, and Horse Hill subcommittees, they are handling most of the infrastructure repair. They are the boots on the ground. They are the eyes on the ground. And so we could not do it without them. And I'll also give a shout out. I think our Conservation Commission, we do have one vacant spot at the moment, and I believe all subcommittees currently have at least one vacant spot. Wildcat Falls especially, I think, is in need of a few members. And it's gonna probably be the most active for a while because not only is it I feel like it's the most popular park, and also it's got the new Town Center Trail, so they're gonna have a lot of work to do. So I'll just give a shout out to them because they could really use another 2 or 3 more members. I think they got only 3 or 4 members at the moment. So incredibly grateful to all of these people who are working for us, paid and unpaid. And that wraps up my presentation. So if anyone has any questions, now's the best time.
Thank you, Eric. Great job. The, do volunteers can spend time with all those different subcommittees, or is it pretty much their individual liking? They, you know,
Yeah, so each volunteer, they volunteer for their own subcommittee. So each subcommittee has its own set members.
So, yeah.
They're certainly free to attend meetings, and actually non-subcommittees, anyone can attend any of these meetings. But, so if anyone is interested, they can just attend a meeting and see what it's all about.
It's always
yeah,
been a great committee. They've, the commission has always had a lot of hardworking people over the years.
Yep, and, yeah, and each subcommittee has a ex officio commissioner rep to represent each committee. I believe it's either Tom or Karis. I think maybe Tom and Karis for Sklar. I believe Gage is currently for Greater Woods. Andrew is our Wildcat rep, and I believe Ellen is currently our Horse Hill rep. So yeah, so we're always in constant contact with our committees and our subcommittees, and they're helping us, and we're doing what we can to help them.
Excellent. Great. Jennifer?
I just want to say thank you to Eric for heading up the committee and all the work that he does to run our meetings and prepare for them. So it's been only a couple months for me, but it's been great so far.
Wonderful.
I will just say I'm always amazed at the number of volunteers, not only on the Conservation Commission, but all the subcommittees. People that use these conservation lands, they probably have no idea the number of hours that go in and to maintain them. And they have a pretty sizable budget that they can use to go maintain these properties. But this group of individuals is very conservative with those funds, to where I've even seen them use material from one project that wasn't suitable for that particular project. They'll reuse it on another project where it is suitable, so they don't have to go buy new. Just very responsible with the resources and very generous with their time. So appreciate everybody on the Conservation Commission and all the subcommittees.
Thank you, Andy. All right, is everyone all set? Eric, thank you so very much, and thank
you.
Thank the commission and all the volunteers for
Okay,
us.
I will.
All right, we have no public hearings, legislative updates. Nancy, do you?
Sure, thank you. I just wanted to mention that some of our Merrimack community legislators attended the school board meeting on Monday night, and Matthew Brown, who is a student at Merrimack High School, had come forth with a proposal for a bill this year, well, actually last year, and it took a couple of rounds because of some things that were beyond everybody's control. But this bill was to put the hotline number for students with eating disorders on the back of student IDs. And fast forward, he did such a phenomenal job. It passed the committee, passed the House, and the Education Committee supported it unanimously and actually named the bill after Matthew. So it's called the Matthew Brown Act. It's in statute. So on Monday night, we presented the bill signed by the governor and the statute to show where it is in chaptered law. And the students this year on the back of their IDs, I've seen it on there. So that was a great thing. The only other thing I said in terms of legislative issues from right now, we're sort of laying low. October 10th is veto day. So we will be there that day. But from November 6th through the 22nd, we have an opportunity to bring forward additional legislation to file an LSR. So if anybody in the community has an idea for that, I know working on one with the Merrimack Police Department, and there are a lot of options. So if people have an idea, they can certainly reach out to any one of us. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Paul, excuse me, no emails that you know?
No emails.
Town manager's report.
Thank you. The Merrimack Public Library is in the process of developing a new 5-year strategic plan. A critical component of the process is gathering information and ideas from the community members to help establish priorities and develop a well-focused direction for the library for the next 5 years. The library is asking the community members to help us by participating in a quick survey. The survey can be accessed from the Merrimack's weekly newsletter, library's weekly newsletter, Facebook page, or on the website found at www.merrimacklibrary.org under info/MPL Strategic Plan. The survey will be open until Friday, October 4th. And I ask the council just to bear with me for a second. I want to give you an update on the Community Choice Aggregation Program. As everybody is aware, Eversource raised their rates just recently, and I reached out to our Freedom Energy and asked them, where do we stand? Dear Town of Merrimack, as you're aware, your CCA plan has recently been approved by the New Hampshire Public Utilities Commission, marking a critical step forward in delivering community-driven energy solutions. As we approach the next phase, it's important to consider the broader goals of the CCA program: budget certainty, cost savings, and rate stability. These three factors are essential to ensuring a long-term success of your community energy procurement efforts. Over the past 2 years, Eversource's standard service rate has fluctuated significantly, ranging from as low as 8 cents to as high as 22 cents per kilowatt hour. These swings highlight the volatility in the energy market and reinforce the need for thoughtful, strategic approach. The market has been relatively flat in recent months, and with Eversource's new rates expected to be released in December, we recommend holding off on locking in any agreement until we have a clearer picture. While we are confident that your CCA program will deliver on its promises of rate stability and budget certainty, it's essential that we secure savings in the initial offering. Historically, CCAs have demonstrated impressive savings performance over the long term, but if a program begins with rates above Eversource comparison rate, it risks undermining public confidence. Establishing early savings is crucial in maintaining a credible and trust of the community. The path forward. Given these factors, we believe that waiting until December, when Eversource announces its updated rate, is the best course of action. At that point, we will assess the market conditions and explore potential opportunities for securing favorable long-term rates. Our goal will be to find an option that not only stabilizes the rates and offers budget certainty, but also delivers savings from the outset. We will continue to monitor the markets closely and will provide you with further updates as December approaches. Should you have any questions, please call. So right now, we are in a holding pattern with the community choice because the key point is that with any new program, you don't want to offer it, like you said, and all of a sudden Eversource, because of the gas markets right now, comes in and undercuts your rate by a penny or a tenth of a penny. It would undermine all the work that committee did and the savings going forward. So when Eversource announces their December rate is when we'll start hitting the ground running. And I'm pretty confident we could probably secure a better rate than what Eversource would.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Does anybody have any questions on that? No? All right. We have nothing on the consent agenda, nor do we have old business. First item under new business, council's to be presented with Boy Scout Peyton Connolly's Eagle Scout project, proposing to build an 8-foot by 10-foot shade structure inside the large dog area of the dog park located at Wasserman Park. Hi, Peyton. Sorry, I go and say, hey, can you do this? And then I forget you, so I apologize for that.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Make sure it's on and pull it as close as you can. Has to be bright.
Is it on?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to let me present to you my Eagle Service project. Let's get it into presentation. All right. I'm with Troop 401. I'm going to hopefully build a canine shade shelter at Wasserman Park. Just want to start off by saying a little bit about myself. I've lived in Merrimack my entire life. I'm a senior at MHS. I'm a member of the National Honor Society and the lacrosse team. In addition to attending MHS, I also attend the Career and Technical Education program at Alvern High School for welding and fabrication. Upon graduating, I plan to attend trade school to pursue a career in welding. I've been involved with Scouts since I've been in kindergarten. I'm a Boy Scout with Troop 401, which meets at St. James Church. I'm at my last step of my scouting journey, preparing to complete my service project and achieve my Eagle Scout rank. The dog park at Wasserman Park is an open concept dog park for the community to enjoy with their canine companions. Despite a large variety of the trees surrounding the area, the dog park remains relatively open to direct sunlight. Depending on the time of day, the sun can beat down on dogs and their owners that are trying to enjoy some outdoor fun. The shade shelter that I'll be building will be an 8-foot by 10-foot covered structure with a shingled roof that is supported by pillars. This will provide a shaded area where dogs and their owners can cool off on hot days. It'll be built off to the side in the middle of the large dog area so that dogs have plenty of room to run around. Here's a mock-up picture of relatively what I'll be building. This is not to spec though. The benefits of this project are that it provides protection from the sun. Both humans and dogs can be affected by direct exposure to the sun. This can result in heat exhaustion or heat stroke. The shade shelter provides a place for dogs and their owners to cool down. It provides a place for owners to sit comfortably out of the sun while their dogs run around and play. It allows dogs to get exercise without their owners sweltering in the sun. If the owners can sit comfortably in the shade, then they are going to be more likely to stay at the park for longer. Having a place for shade helps to reduce exposure to harmful UV rays, which can cause skin cancer in both humans and dogs. It also provides a social benefit since it can offer a welcoming feel to the dog park for people so that they can socialize with others while their dogs play with other dogs. Shade shelter offers health and safety benefits as well as social advantages, promoting an area that brings enjoyment to community members and their pets. My timeline for the project is at the beginning of July, I was emailing with Mr. Kasparius to inquire about what he had for ideas for what project to do. He gave me a list of things that I could do, and this one caught my eye. So then I just was planning. I was emailing multiple people to request help with the project and clarifying what Mr. Kasparius wanted for the actual specs of it. Then I was in talking to Mr. Kasparius and just deciding where he wanted it to be built and out of the way so that dogs can still run around and play. And then I met with one of my former scout leaders, Mr. Johnson, who is a builder, to plan up and draw my blueprint for the shade shelter to determine the materials that I was going to need. I then went to Home Depot to price out all my materials, and then I completed my proposal, and then I met with Mr. Kasparius to review my proposal and discuss my presentation to the Parks and Rec and Town Council tonight. Then I submitted my proposal to Daniel Webster Council to request presenting my proposal to the Eagle Board. I decided my fundraising event and create a flyer to advertise. Then I created a PowerPoint presentation for my upcoming proposal presentations. Then the list of, I presented to Parks and Rec Committee, then I presented to my Eagle Board last night, and then we're presenting to Town Council tonight. Then plan on contacting St. James to reserve Fellowship Hall for my fundraiser and contact the DPW to schedule the day for the auger to be able to come in and drill the holes for the pillars and footings. October 5th and 6th, I plan to sell advance tickets and collect donations for my spaghetti dinner fundraiser. And then October 12th, I plan on hosting my spaghetti dinner fundraiser at St. James. Then just ongoing planning, email all the people that are involved with helping me, purchasing all the materials, gathering all my tools and supplies, and then just finalizing the planning and building phases and roles of those that are helping me. And then I was going to complete the build the weekend of November 2nd and 3rd, but I just found out that the date needs to be changed to November 9th and 10th due to Scouting for Food for community service event, which is held on the weekend of the 2nd. And I'm going to present the shade shelter to Mr. Kasparius if everything goes well, and then provide a written report with my project outcomes to present to the Eagle Board. I'm planning to have 6 to 8 people help me with the building and the fundraising. So I'm going to recruit my fellow scouts, leaders, friends, and family. I'm going to finalize the materials and supplies and tools I need. I'm going to contact the DPW to schedule the day for the auger to dig the holes for the pillars. I'm going to measure out the dog park and measure and mark where I want the DPW to actually drill the holes. And then I'm going to hold my fundraiser, purchase all the materials that I need, finalize plans, review with those that are helping me, and delegate and supervise the construction of the shade shelter. My main concerns are getting enough people to help me with my spaghetti dinner fundraiser and to complete the construction of my build. I think the most difficult part of leading this will be me not being able to actually build and having to delegate and show others where I want things and how I want them done without actually touching it. I'm very independent, so I'm very hands-on. And then also, it's going to be difficult for having younger scouts since they aren't able to touch any of the equipment, and since it's a safety hazard, they're going to just be runners, so grabbing tools and grabbing materials for those who are actually building. And then I will need to be extremely organized in my pre-planning and communicate to everyone that they know what needs to be done. And then since the anticipated date for the build has been pushed back to November 9th and 10th, and we live in an unpredictable New England, I hope that the weather cooperates so that we can complete this build as planned. My pricing for the project is going to be a total of around $550 for my materials, and then supplies is going to be another $600 after paying for all of the tools and paying for drinks for everyone for the weekend and paying for the upfront costs for my fundraiser. And then just paying for a few tools since Mr. Johnson and my father own most of the tools I'm going to need for the build. And then the only other miscellaneous thing is the engraved plaque at the end of when it is fully completed for a total estimated project cost of $1,215. Transportation of materials, supplies, and tools. I will arrange to use my friend's trailer to transport all of the lumber from the store to the dog park. All the other materials and supplies will be transported in my truck and my father's truck. Mr. Johnson will bring supplies and tools that he has that he'll let us use. Adult helpers and my friends that have their driver's licenses will be able to transport themselves to the dog park. But then younger scouts from my troop who do not have their licenses will need to have their parents drive them to and from the dog park. I will give out a notice, but just because of BSA's requirements, you have to be 25 to drive other scouts. Safety issues is another concern. Since power tools can be used, everyone involved will need to wear eye protection. Younger scouts are not permitted to use power tools due to the risk of injury. I'll assign duties for them to be able to safely help participate with the build of the project. I'm going to provide everyone with work gloves. Since there's a need to climb ladders when building the roof and applying all of the shingles to the shade shelter, extra precaution will be necessary. We will have a flat surface to use a ladder and have somebody hold the ladder and make sure that the person on the ladder stays safe and doesn't fall off. Extra caution will be used when using hammers and nails. I'll have a first aid kit available in the event that anybody gets injured. My action steps for this planning is reviewing the blueprint to ensure that it contains everything that I'm going to need, I'm going to meet with the manager of Home Depot to ensure that all the materials are listed and priced. I'm going to identify the number of helpers needed and request assistance from Scout members, leaders, friends, and family. I'm going to purchase all my materials, gather all the supplies, tools, and equipment that I need, devise a duty roster, transport all the materials, supplies, tools, and equipment to the dog park, hold a team meeting to discuss the plan for the day to assign duties to everybody. I'm going to review the blueprint, set up the equipment that is needed, arrange all the materials and supplies. I'm going to closely monitor the process of the build and make changes to the duty roster as needed to ensure that the process is running smoothly. And then I'm already covering all of these. This is just for my Eagle board, what they require. And then I'm going to talk to local businesses for donations for my fundraiser. I'm going to sell advance tickets, like I said, for my spaghetti supper on the weekend of October 5th and 6th. Hang flyers for the spaghetti dinner fundraiser at local businesses and post a notice on social media. I'm going to host the spaghetti dinner fundraiser at St. James on October 12th. I'm going to receive donations from friends and family and continue to update social media. Here's a rough sketch mock-up of what my flyer is going to look like for my fundraiser. And then here's a blueprint of what me and Mr. Johnson sat down to come up with for the shade shelter. So I'm going to do 30-inch footings to make them to spec, and then the back is going to be 10 feet high, and then the front is going to be 8 feet high, just so it has a nice pitch, so then we don't have to worry about any snow on it in the winter, so the snow just falls right off. And then here are some photos of before. And then here's a bird's eye view of where exactly I'm going to place the structure. Yet again right there, right up against the fence. And then that rough design again. Thank you for the opportunity for me to give back to my community.
Peyton, that was a very nice job.
Thank you.
We always say we're always very impressed when the scouts come and make their presentations. It was very thorough.
That's true.
Does anybody have any
Well
questions?
done. Well done.
Thank you.
Nancy?
You did a great job, Peyton. That was so thorough and organized. I have a question. I've been to a lot of Eagle Scout ceremonies, and I noticed one of the points that you made in your explanation was that you have to oversee and direct, but you can't participate. Is that one of the rules?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
So it's the organizational piece and the oversight. Awesome.
Yeah, you aren't
I
allowed
learned
to.
something new.
You aren't allowed to help with your fundraiser either. You just have to set it all up, tell everybody what you would like to have done, and then you're just supposed to talk to the community.
Great, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer?
That's hard when you're a hand-on person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he was saying in his thing. It's going to be difficult for him. Jennifer?
I just wanted to say, great presentation.
Thank you.
My nephew did his Eagle Scout project with a dog park also down in New Jersey, so
nice.
found this very interesting.
Thank you.
Well done. It sounds like you got a lot of work ahead of you.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting. I had never also understood that you had to keep your hands off and just be the supervisor. And that is going to be a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
It'll also be a great learning experience for
It
you.
will
So
be.
that's good. Thank you very much for your effort there.
Thank you.
You going to come back next year and put one on the small dog side, or
No, I'll be already
help
aged
out somebody else in the troop for a future one? Thanks.
All righty. Mackenzie, all set?
Yeah, I guess I'll just add that the Lobster Boat as well as the Tomahawk Tavern have both been so kind and have been able to give me a card so that Peyton can actually raffle those off at the spaghetti dinner as well.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Perfect. Very nice.
See, you're making money now already.
Educating us about Eagle Scout.
Yes. Paul? Yes, somebody would like to make a motion?
I move to approve the Eagle Scout project as presented by Peyton.
Second.
For the shade structure at large dog area of the dog park.
Second.
And authorize the town manager or
It's usually the town council chair if he needs any
town council
signatures.
chair to sign any documents necessary for the
Very good.
Scout project.
All right. Motion by Tom Koenig, second by Nancy Murphy. There's no further discussion on the motion? I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstained, 7-0-0. Thank you, Peyton.
Thank you.
And if you do need anything from us,
I think I need one signature.
would you like that tonight?
Yes,
Do you have the
please.
paperwork?
Yeah.
And good luck on your welding.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, you want me to just close
Good,
this out?
good choice.
Is that your laptop?
No.
No, okay. Did you take your drive out of it?
Yeah, there's a place usually you have to sign. The chair has to sign.
Is that okay?
Usually the chair of the town council that signs those. Matt works for me, I work for them. They're giving you the permission on the property to build it.
He's nervous.
Last time I signed without reading, I was in the Army for 3 years. Have we gotten a copy of this? This is for me, the beneficiary.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Has provided us with a copy of Navigating the Eagle Scout Eagle project. That was probably all this tonight.
Yep. All that leadership learning will do good when you get your own
Yeah.
business of welding.
Yep.
You could tell them,
Be one of the bosses.
Yep.
the leaders, that none of us, all of the Eagle Scout projects that have come before us, I never had an idea. So it was so good that you said that. Because none of us knew. We-
Yeah, I
You
didn't
know, we've improved them all the time and had
Thank you,
no
Peyton.
idea.
Very,
that-
very nice job.
So
Thank you
thank
for
you.
everything.
Thank you, good
Take
luck.
care. Take care.
Did he have a thumb drive in that? Is he all set?
No, he's all set.
All righty. So we move on. Item number 2, under new business, the council will consider the renewal of a 4-year agreement between the town of Merrimack and the Merrimack Youth Association.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tonight is here, Rick and John from the MYA are also here. When July came around and John called me and said, hey, can we have our payment? I said, okay. And of course, having a new finance director, I said, Paul, you got to read the contract and figure out what we're supposed to pay. And then I looked at it, I said, ooh, we don't have the contract. The contract expired as of June 30th. So I went back to the MYA. I proposed a 5-year deal with the MYA. They have since countered and said we'd appreciate a 4-year deal, and they can explain why. They also wanted some language adjustments in item number 2 of the contract, which I think we are amenable to. Makes perfect sense to me that why should they have a program if there isn't a lot of interest in the program, or with safety, and if they don't have enough volunteers to run a program, that, really you can't run a program if you don't have enough volunteers. So they just would like some language in there to basically state that, and they'll explain that. And then the other one was a bookkeeper. They're amenable to hiring a bookkeeper, but if they have somebody who wants to volunteer and become their bookkeeper, they will still be keeping their books according to how we would like them. So I really don't see an issue with that as well. And then number 11 is the field maintenance. And between what the MYA would like and what the town would like, I would recommend the council keep what's in the current contract of, we will do the initial laying out of the fields and lining the fields, and it's up to the volunteers at MYA to line the fields on a weekly basis. If there's some major maintenance that needs to occur during the week on one of those fields, which they normally do, is they contact DPW and we go out there and fix the field. But we do not have the staff to line the fields for twice a week for their games. We actually pay somebody to lay out the fields at the beginning of the year. With from Massachusetts, he comes up and he lays out the fields, and it's costly for them to come up and do it, but it's because we don't have the staff that can do that type of work at the beginning of spring when we're busy trying to get the fields open everything else that goes on with spring, when spring first hits. So that was the 4 areas where they would like some amendments to, up to the council on number 11 itself. And then the last one is that to keep costs down, they've asked to expand where they can put their sponsorship and sponsorship signs. And I passed out 3 little areas, but they will be more than happy to talk to you about that as well.
Hi, Rick, John.
Good evening, everyone.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Howdy.
Hello, everyone. John Calabro, President of MYA, Rick Grenier, Vice President.
Oh, do you have your mic on?
No.
Hello. There I am.
There you go.
It turns faint green when you shut it off.
It's darker green.
So Paul laid out, what we were negotiating for the contract, and we understand Paul's hesitation about lining the fields. We suggested a bi-weekly basis after the initial layout. And to be honest with you, the programs have told us that getting volunteers to keep the lines maintained has been more and more difficult. As you all know, volunteerism is way down, and it's a big burden on the programs, especially football, who has to have a lined field at every game. Now, they only have 4 home games a year, but we'll have to figure out how to do that, I guess. So I'll agree to that, certainly. Everything else is as Paul has laid it out. The one thing I did want to show you is when we talk about sponsorship, sponsors want to get some advertisement back when they sponsor our programs. So as part of that, we usually will, like, for example, Bice Field for baseball, they'll hang banners of the companies that donate, $200 or $300, something to that effect. A couple of the programs that don't have that is softball and lacrosse, because they really haven't had a place to put up sponsorship banners. And frankly, that's one of our big sources of income, is to get sponsorships. I'll use the word free money, but right, so they'll give us $200-300 in exchange for a $50 banner that goes up during the season. So a couple of areas that we've put in the contract, let's see if I can make this thing work, is at Gibson Field. I don't know if you folks have ever been to Gibson Field, but there's a equipment shed over there that primarily lacrosse uses. Soccer uses it sometimes in the fall. And what they would like to do is put up banners on one side of the shed facing the parking lot. And I took some pictures the other day, and that's kind of where the shed is. And their proposal is that they would cut it into 3x5 sections and have enough space for about half a dozen sponsors, depending on how many they would get. So that's one spot, and that would help support the lacrosse program. The other location is over at Reed's Ferry Schools. When you pull in Lions Drive, as you come in on the left-hand side, there is a batting cage for softball, and they would like to be able to put up sponsorship banners along that cage. So it's not necessarily on the field per se, and certainly doesn't affect anybody's view of the games or anything to that effect. This is an example. They had manually hung this banner up one day to see what it would look like. So this is what it would look like. And who do we use for sponsors? We'll use Convenient Med, we'll use Reed's Ferry Lumber, pretty much all the local businesses that come back year after year, typically, and sponsor one or more programs. And that's the goal, is that if we can do this, we can have a little bit more money for doing things like field lining and field maintenance without registration fee, which we work hard to try to keep cost to the families as low as possible, so they can play sports without it being a financial burden. So those are the two additions to the contract. On the I'll call it advertising, but it's really sponsorship display, and that's really one of the changes that we want to show. So the contract pretty much speaks for itself, and like I said, we'll certainly be willing to forego the bi-weekly lining on Paul's recommendation for that.
Thank you, John.
And the language they're proposing for number 2 would read, Merrimack youth residents residing in Merrimack, except, as mentioned above, provided there is enough participation and adult supervision, volunteerism, to support the league. So basically, like I said, they want to make it safe, and if there isn't enough participation, for instance, if there's a wrestling program with 3 kids in it, and I hate to use wrestling, but I know that's one of the programs with low turnout, but if there's a wrestling program with 3 people in it and they don't have a coach to coach them, or volunteer to coach them, it's kind of hard to have a wrestling program. And that's what they're really looking at, so that they can't say, well, it says in the contract you're supposed to provide a wrestling program, or a basketball program, or a baseball or a softball program if there isn't enough volunteerism.
Yes.
Finley, may I add that this has never happened yet, but while we're renewing our contract, it makes sense to us to change the language slightly.
Yeah, that makes good sense.
Well, as an example, a woman named Kimberly Dickinson just approached us recently. She's very interested in starting an MYA golf league. Now, of course, the contract doesn't say golf, but we advised her that if she could build up enough interest and get enough members to create a little board, and 10 or 20 kids want to golf and learn how to golf, she explained to us that there really is no golf program before high school. So, and the high school does have a golf team of 20-something kids. So we said, well, sure, that sounds good. Golf is a sport. And we're working with her to try to organize what the interest would be. So although that wouldn't specifically be in the contract for 4 years proposed, the language says that we could start up a program like that and dismantle it. If all of a sudden it comes and goes, you're not forced to keep it. We've always maintained that if a program doesn't have a director, it doesn't have a program. But a board is more than just one person. So that's kind of the way we operate. So we just wanted the language to kind of reflect that if you folks ever got calls to say, what happened to the wrestling program? The answer is, we don't have enough volunteers, and that's usually the case more than not enough people who want to participate. Wrestling is an example that we're quite concerned about, that the board is starting to age out, and I don't see any youth or follow-on interest there. So that program may be in trouble, we'll see.
Nancy?
Thank you. I have I have a copy of the contract, but not the proposed language that you're talking about for number 2. And I'm wondering if the phrase that says, which the MYA is capable of providing, would that not be sufficient to say if you don't have the staff, you're not capable of providing it? So wouldn't that cover the inability to, because it just makes sense if you can't.
Well, it does, yeah, I agree.
I feel like
does
it's
make
there
sense.
already, so
Right.
that, I don't know, that you would need to change it, because if they don't have the volunteers, there's no way that they can provide a
Right.
service that they don't have.
Yeah, sometimes, our concern, Nancy, sometimes is if somebody gets in trouble, if they don't behave appropriately.
Yeah.
And disciplinary action has to happen, people tend to want to run to the bylaws, the contract. And they'll start negotiating the bylaws about, oh, you can't do that, or you can't do this. The answer is, if you don't act in a spirit of MYA way, then you can be removed from the program. The language change was really just that if, as an example, if all of a sudden we had no coaching or no board interest in basketball, which is a big program, we would have to cancel the basketball program, and I guarantee you would get calls.
Yeah.
What the heck happened to the basketball program, right? So, although I agree, it kind of almost goes without saying, we want to be able to go back to those people and say, well, listen, our language says that if we have enough volunteers, we can run the program. If you want the program, come on in and volunteer.
So do you think like a clarifying phrase that just, like in parentheses, it just says sufficient coaches aboard?
Yeah, it can be.
Because I think it already
Yeah.
covers that.
Or not.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'd say you're already covered.
Yeah, I
but
agree.
Just, It's sufficient for me, it makes pretty good sense, but if you feel that it would be problematic, maybe just to clarify that.
It'll make it stronger for them.
Yeah,
Really. It's really that,
yeah.
what we're asking them to do is provide these programs for our youth.
Right.
And we called out certain programs, and like you said, the golf program is not called out because they don't have one yet. But if they do add it, and like in the 4 years, it comes up and goes down, it's not, oh, well, it's golf program. It just gives them a little more feedback. And dealing with other issues, you know, it's been a environment that has changed over the years here, where people are, where does it say that in writing? Prove it to me in writing, prove it to me in writing. And I think that's what they really want to be able to do is say, okay, it's in writing now, it's in our contract with the town of Merrimack that we can do this. And I think that's really what that change was, and I didn't have a problem with that change because of just conversations I've had over the last 6 to 8 months of people telling me to prove it in writing.
Jennifer?
I just found a couple of typos on page 4. Do you want me to just give those to you, or do you want me to?
Sure,
tell you there?
Yeah, you can just hand it to me.
Yeah.
We thank Jennifer for that
I'm
thorough.
curious
Yeah.
about-
Nancy?
The only thing I'd like to address is the request regarding the sponsorship spaces. I think one of the things, from my point of view, is one, it provides money to be able to keep the cost down for the participants. And I remember way back, Tom, you and I were young, there was some discussion about the types, you know, the businesses and stuff. That has not been a problem. Obviously, they've considered it'll be the local businesses kind of thing. And I have never heard a complaint about the fields that do have the advertising already, that they've been tastefully done. There's been no complaints about them being unsightly. So I really don't see, I can't think of an argument against providing them permission.
I can't either. I guess I'm a little concerned on that one with the pitching cage that looks like a huge banner got put up there, and that's a very large area. I would hate to see it plastered completely over with banners or something like that, where you can't even see what's going on inside. And so there's no hint of control over what goes up there or how much gets covered or anything like that in what you've talked about tonight.
Right.
And I don't see anything, certainly in this contract, that they've given to us showing a finalized version of what you're proposing. So I'm concerned whether we're supposed to be trying to sign off on something tonight, or this was just a discussion.
We can sign off on the contract as is, and when they're going to do those additional signage to add as an addendum, we can bring those back to the council for their final approval.
But this
Because-
doesn't have the modified line 2, and it says it's a 5-year term and
Yeah.
things like that. So there's a lot about this that's in our package that's not what you're
Yeah.
presenting.
And this, I brought this forward because of the 4 items. I will bring a finalized contract, knowing how for the town council to vote on at the next meeting to officially approve the contract.
Tom, I just have a question. I'm not sure what you're asking for.
I'd like to know what the finalized contract's going to look like
No,
before
I'm
I.
talking about in terms of the signage.
Oh, I don't know exactly how to do it either. I mean, in the past, they've given us pictures saying this is what's there, this
understand.
is what we have. But this is a huge wall of fencing there with a very large sign on it. And I don't know if there's any plans to restrict or define the size of the signs or number of signs that are going to be put upon that wall.
Is it the site that's an issue for you?
The site doesn't bother me, no, but
Okay,
if that whole
yeah.
fence was covered with a sign or multiple signs, I think that would be a distraction. You couldn't see anything that was going on inside there.
Okay, but if that sign were at Bice Field in the outfield, that wouldn't bother you?
No, in fact, they have some that are at Bice Field in
Correct.
the outfield. There's
So-
not anything blocking.
Well, that's what I'm trying to differentiate. What you're suggesting is because it is a batting place, you can't see into it because it's covered. Okay, so
Right,
that's
and
the
it's also a
difference.
very big sign that's right up in your face, whereas Bice Field, they're
It's
on the
further
other
out.
end of the
Okay,
field.
I have your point.
So it makes sense to have them large, but
Okay.
I'm just a little concerned that that's a kind of a blank check to,
Tom, if I may, we've talked with Nancy about uniformity of various signage throughout the community and how we think that might look better. And it sounds like you might feel more comfortable with something like a 4-foot by 8-foot limit, such as what's on the Bice field, basically the size of a piece of plywood. So you're looking for some kind of finite limit?
some kind of a definition, yeah. I mean, that 4 foot by 8 foot, when you're walking right beside it, is large. But when it's at the other end of a baseball field, it's not that big, and it's not as in your face. So maybe 4 by 8 along there is a little bit large for any one sign to be. So I guess, I don't know if I think it ought to be adjustment of distance from the viewer, or something like that, or just a limitation of how many signs you could put on that particular fence, so that it's not blanketed with, 12 or 24 signs or something
Sure,
like that.
understand.
Because then it starts to become a optical nightmare, which people might not want to be involved in that anyway, so they wouldn't do it. But it's the way it was talked about tonight is kind of a blank check. We don't really know what's going on. And it just, we felt like we needed to know better about what was going on, like at Bicycle.
I think I understand. I think we could probably nail down some specifications that might make you
Okay.
feel more comfortable.
Thanks. Can you go over the 4 points that are changed here? Obviously, line 2 and the length of the term and the advertising. Or was there a fourth one that I'm not thinking of offhand?
They had requested striping, but
They withdrew, yes, I can.
Nancy, if you don't mind, I'm not sure what it is, but Nancy has something she wanted to dovetail on this kind of thing. If don't
Thank
mind.
you. I had the same concern. To me, I think it's a great idea, and I get it. We need the money. The only thing is, I think something like that could visually, it could also be a safety issue. I mean, if that whole thing was, please, law enforcement going by there can't see beyond. So maybe if, rather than, I wouldn't be crazy about regulating a certain size of sign, but maybe a percentage of the viewing area could be covered. And then my other thought would be, I'd like to see something about what kind of signs, like who can, do you want political signs? Do you want somebody, I don't know that that's a good idea. I'd like to personally just see it be business supporters, not, because I think that it gets a whole other thing. So that's why I agree with Tom. I just would like to see some more specifics. Wouldn't be crazy to me, based on the side. A big sign at the back of a park on a solid wall isn't a big deal, but when it potentially has yeah, I would be concerned about that. You can't really see what's behind it, and I would just think it might create a safety risk.
Jennifer, did you have something?
I remember when we first started talking, they didn't want Budweiser to have a sign because it was liquor.
Oh, really?
So it addressed what you're talking about.
Okay, so I can address all 4 items, but if you want to go to page 6 of the contract that's in your book, your book there, that's Convenient MD that they have on the bottom. No, in the contract. That would be what they would be looking for on that batting cage. That's about the same size batting cage that's at Bice Field. That's what they would be looking for. However, saying that, the town council has made it a priority to approve the signs that do go up, and the MYA has come back with additions that have been added to the contract, and one of them is the Elliott Orthodontics. They came back and asked the council to put that up at Bice Field, and they provided that. I don't think the MYA, I don't want to talk for them, but I don't think the MYA would have a problem with showing the town council the sign that's going on that, those locations. What they really want to look into is, do we have a spot that we can provide for our sponsors of advertising? And one of the big things is softball, because baseball has Bice Field. Softball, they play at Reed's Ferry. They don't have a spot for their sponsors or somebody who sponsors a team. And correct me if I'm wrong, if I sponsor a team, I have the opportunity of having a sign provided for me as well? So like Reed's Ferry Lumber, they sponsor a team. Do they have the opportunity to have the sign as well?
No, for softball currently, no, because that's.
No, I'm talking about for baseball.
Yeah, for baseball.
Baseball, they would
Yeah.
get, so that's what they're looking
Depends on
for.
how much they
Sponsor,
donate. So
yeah, right.
$300 get you a banner and a team sponsor. $500 get you 2 banners or something.
Whatever it is, and that's really what they're doing. So I don't know, like I said, I don't want to speak for them, but in the past, I've always brought the signs back. When they did Vets Park, they asked for permission to put that sign up as well. So they showed the sign and did it. And what they're asking for is, I guess here, and how I understood is they're asking for permission to start the process of trying and gather signs for this area and bring those forward. So, because they have to be approved according to the contract, actually they had to be approved by July 1st. But according to the contract, they would like those to go and move forward and have these other locations added as potential areas for signs. And then they would bring the signs forward and how they would look, and then they would get added into the contract. Is that fair to say, gentlemen?
Yeah, absolutely.
So they don't have a problem bringing back what is going out there for final approval. The 4 items that they talked about, Tom, was 4 years, number 1. Number 2, they would just like to put the language, add the language after providing, basically to say that, provided there is enough participation and adult volunteerism to support the league. And number 4, they would like to just basically say the MOA at their sole expense will provide, not hire, but provide a bookkeeper, whether it's a volunteer or if they have to pay for it. And then number 11, they took off the table. Item number 11, they took off the table. So as is for item number 11.
Oh, okay.
And then adding that they could eventually, with the town council permission, have some signage at their softball field and at their, at Gibson Field here, lacrosse field.
Okay. Can I bring up another question? Throughout this thing, it keeps talking about the town deciding or the town agreeing or the town doing something else. Do we need to qualify who the town is?
The town is,
At one point, it talks about the town manager, another point, it talks about the town council, and another point, it talks about the town of Merrimack. And so I'm just wondering if from a quote-unquote a legal perspective, whether we need to describe, you know, is the town manager with a right of appeal to the town council, or, you know, do we need to do something like that just to cover MWA?
well, the first paragraph identifies the town as Merrimack, the town of Merrimack, a municipal corporation with the address of 6 Booze Lake Road as the town.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But
that's.
but if the town disagrees with something, is that everybody in the community of the town disagreeing? Is it the town manager disagreeing? Is it the town council disagreeing? Who is the representative of the town? You are.
You give me permission to sign, so they would come through me, and I'd go to you if there's something else.
Okay.
If they don't like my decision, they would go to you.
So should we say in there that the town manager's decision is critical and that appeal to the town council is an option, or?
We could, if that's, we could.
I mean, just, if you guys don't care, I don't care, but I was just thinking as I read it a couple of times that maybe we wanted some clarity in there as to who was the operational character here.
My opinion would be that it wouldn't hurt in any way to clarify that wording and maybe have a little more consistency.
Funny, things have been going pretty smoothly, and so we didn't even realize the contract had run out.
Yeah.
Because of that, so.
You know, I think there's a couple of, as you said, paths that are crossed in here, because the town council cannot direct maintenance on a field to employees. It's the town manager. So I think, you know, some of these lines got blurry. To be honest with you, this has been a contract in place for several years, a long time. We can clarify that. Normally, it's been the town, meaning the municipal agreement, which is the town manager.
Yep.
Town council sets my policy to say, yes, we approve this contract, now enforce it. And then if they do have a beef with the town manager or whoever's sitting in this seat, they would go to the town council with those beefs. If, for instance, they came to me and said, I want to put a sign here, I said, nope, you can't put a sign there, they would go to you and say, hey, we're trying to put a sign at XYZ Field, can we do that?
Right, so the agreement is with the town of Merrimack through the town manager.
Correct. As the
And-
delegated authority by the town council.
Delegated authority, there you go.
I think it would be good to clarify that in there just a little bit, because when it says down at 7 that the town shall be responsible, obviously that has to be through you, because you're the only
Right.
one that has anybody that works for you that can do anything.
I guess we can change number, we can change one of the 1, 2, 3, or 4 and basically say, through delegation of the town council, the town manager has the responsibility of the following.
To
Yeah,
implement
we
and,
can put that someplace in here when I bring the contract back.
Okay.
This, it's a little bit different than normal with contracts. And for people at home saying, well, why are they coming forward? It's different because the contract is between the MOA and the town of Merrimack, which you're the representatives of. You are negotiating in public with the
With a
MOA
private entity.
over the contract. That's why we're doing this way, instead of saying, here's a finalized contract, sign it, give me permission to sign. This happened back in 2007, I think they started doing it this way with the MOA coming and negotiating in front of the town council, when town council form of government started 7 or 8. So that's why it's being done this way versus some other contracts that get negotiated and brought forward for just approval. So what these, if they would have brought, if there weren't any changes besides the number of years, it would have been just simple, here's the contract, approve or disapprove. But with these changes, we felt that the town council had to weigh in with the changes, whether or not they wanted them or not.
Nancy?
okay.
I'm reading this, that this contract is between the MYA and the town of Merrimack, the municipal corporation, not between the MYA and a town manager. I think why there are discrepancies in the numbered sections here is because, like at number 10, the town manager is the one who oversees the DPW that may be. So I think that's why on number 10, it says town manager to coordinate the maintenance of the facilities. The town council wouldn't do that, but.
No, I agree.
But I'm, all right, then, I must be in, is the suggestion to change it all to the town manager?
No, whatever
Okay.
is appropriate. I was figuring it's coming back probably the next meeting,
Yes,
and I think it's gonna be a little simpler than what it is appearing right now. Just on those modifications that have to be, those things that have to be adjusted could easily be done.
right, and there's a line that will be in there that says the town council designates authority to the town manager or something of that sort. We'll figure out language. I'll talk to the legal attorneys and figure out language of what we can put in there so that it's a little more clear that through the town manager to the town council.
All right.
Like I said, it's a little blurred
I'm
line.
chuckling to myself because we're going over this earlier, and Paul said, this should be a quick one.
I didn't say that. I never
No,
say that.
Yes, you did.
Should be a quick one.
So, is that okay? I mean, if there's,
Yeah,
when we
yeah,
get the agenda packet, if you have any questions about it, try and catch Paul before the next meeting, I guess, so we can, have it all.
Yeah.
If it needs any more tweaking, we can get it accomplished easily that night.
I guess the only thing I'm asking for is the town council in favor of a 4-year deal? Are you in favor of providing that additional language about participation in programs? And the change to saying that they will provide instead of hire a bookkeeper? And then a caveat basically saying that we'll allow additional signs at Gibson Field and Reed's Ferry Fields with prior approval of the town council for signage?
Yeah, who owns those fields at Reed's Ferry? Is that the school district?
I
or is
believe
that
they're the
us?
town, they're the town fields. Town maintains and owns them, I believe. I'll
Okay.
double check that, but I
I
believe
just
that
don't
is
want to
the
step
town's.
on their toes and
Yeah,
have them
right.
come back and scream at us for giving
Right.
away access to those.
Right, and then
Fences.
the fifth thing, well, the extra caveat about designee in there. So if the town council's okay with those 5 items,
Yeah, and there's a word in number 26, third full line from the bottom, that's spelled performance. And
yeah,
I think it's performance.
performance, yep.
Thank you.
Jennifer missed that.
No, Jennifer caught it.
Oh, did she?
That-
Okay.
That's page 4. That's page 4.
I should have never second guessed.
She caught that one.
Very good. So are we okay then? I mean, I think everybody's on.
I think it's great.
I'm
I
seeing a
appreciate
lot
the
of
work
heads
the MYA
shaking.
does.
Yeah,
and,
very good.
Thank you very much for all that effort.
All right. Probably not necessary for them to come back next week, but maybe.
Not
I mean,
unless
next
you-
week, but next meeting.
Next, I don't believe so. I think it would just be
If you want, you can be.
they can be here, but it's, it's
Should be
just
a
bringing
consent
back
agenda type
the
thing.
agenda thing, and I will run the language of the designee by them beforehand. They'll see the contract before as
Very
well.
good. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Well
Thank
said.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Now, this one might be a little discussion, I don't know. But next item under new business, item 3, is the council discuss the possibility of implementing impact fees, or otherwise known as innovative land use controls, within the town of Merrimack pursuant to RSA 674:21V.
It's, all right. Robert's here. Robert Price, our Community Development Director, is here to discuss impact fees and what an impact fee is, what an impact fee can be used for. There's been a lot of talk about town of Merrimack and when we're looking at increasing fees and revenues and things of that sort. However, impact fees, and I'll keep talking until it comes up. Impact fees are a way that we could raise money. Robert has a way, he'll explain better of what it is and how they are provided and collected. I just remember when I first started here way back in 2004, the town did have impact fees on certain roads for intersections, traffic signals, and they were on the books for a good 10 to 15 years. And when I started, I said, I went to a conference and they said impact fees 5 to 7 years at most. So I said, what are we going to do with all these impact fees? And we ended up sending all the money back because we didn't use them. There was an impact or a sidewalk fee that was given if we built a sidewalk, I believe, on Continental Boulevard by one of the companies that moved in, and we had to end up giving back that money as well because we never built the sidewalk, because their portion of the impact fee was a sizable amount, but the cost of the sidewalk, to bring a sidewalk there, was not in the cards. It was very expensive to do some of these things. So, but now that it's up, I'll let Robert continue with the discussion on impact fees and.
Sure. So I'm here tonight, evening, to talk a little bit about impact fees, do a general overview. So they are, why is that not going any further? No, I'm on the next slide. It's just not, it's frozen up there.
Well, help is coming.
Why is it?
Sorry, I put everything on this one, because this one's not working.
Oh.
Gonna fill.
I feel like the maitre d' that has to fill in now for dead air. You don't want dead air, right? The worst thing on the radio is dead air.
You won't find that on 102.9.
Once again, that's 102.9 Merrimack Radio. No dead air.
Thank you.
There we go.
There we go. That's better. All right. So impact fees are a innovative land use control. They're regulated by RSA 674:21(5). Basically, to summarize, they're a fee or assessment imposed upon the development, including subdivisions, building construction, or other land use change, in order to help meet the needs occasioned by that development for the construction or improvement of capital facilities, and that's the key part, owned or operated by the municipality. They are different than off-site exactions, which can only be charged for highway, drainage, sewer, and water improvements. Impact fees are limited to the following categories. It's quite lengthy, but it's basically your town capital facilities, your water treatment distribution, wastewater treatment and disposal, sanitary sewer, stormwater drainage and flood control, municipal road systems and rights of way, municipal offices, public school facilities, the municipality's proportional share of capital facilities of a cooperative or regional school, which we don't really have to deal with here, public safety facilities, solid waste collection, transfer, recycling, processing, disposal, and public recreational, not including the public open space. So how do they work? They are assessed by the planning board at the time of a conditional of approval, or at the time a building permit issuance is given, if there's no planning board approval needed for the project. The fees would then be collected by the building official prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, or at the time that the development is ready for its intended use if no certificate of occupancy is needed. The improvement for which the fee was collected must be made by the town within 6 years, or the fee must be returned to the developer with interest. And there needs to be a rational nexus between the collected fee and the capital project that the fee is used to fund. In other words, capital project is necessitated by the development that the impact fee was collected from. So if we were to go down this road, first the town would need to adopt an impact fee ordinance as part of the zoning ordinance. Then the town would need to hire a consultant to prepare an impact fee methodology which generates the actual fee schedule to create the justification and what the actual fees are. And no later than 60 days following the end of the fiscal year, this is an annual reporting requirement, any municipality having adopted impact fee ordinances shall prepare a report that lists all the expenditures of impact fee revenue from the prior fiscal year, identifying the capital improvement project for which the fees were assessed, and stating the dates upon which the fees were assessed, collected, and that's going to be published in the town report annually as well. This became law after Town of Hudson ran into some accounting difficulties with that. They couldn't fully track everything. So municipalities cannot assess road impact fees for improvements to state highways any longer. Municipalities can require a developer to make improvements to a state highway using their authority for offsite improvements, similar to what we did with Flatley with expanding a travel lane and some drainage work there. But they wouldn't be able, if that project were to be here today, if we had impact fees, we would not be able to assess a roadway impact fee on that to cover improvements to like widen DW Highway or something.
Sorry, Rob,
Yeah.
could you say that again?
If Flatley were to come forward today, if we had impact fees, we could not charge them a road impact fee to be able to widen DW Highway or do anything in that area, any of the improvements today. So down below, I've listed some of the apartment projects that we've had that this could have been generated on. We've got Twin Bridge Apartments off Twin Bridge Road. There's 48 units there. The 360 Apartments, there's 40 units there behind the renovated 360 Plaza. And the Executive Park Residences, which have 280 units on Executive Park Drive. All of those projects would have been eligible for road impact fees because they are all town-controlled roadways. Gilbert Crossing at 336, Edgebrook at 232, and Slade at Merrimack at 402. All of those are on state-controlled roadways, so we would not be able to assess any roadway impact fees or improvements there.
Can you go back a minute?
Yep.
Road impact fees I'm having trouble understanding the difference that you're trying to make here.
So-
Impact fees or whatever that we're talking about right now are not road impact fees, or they are road impact?
Road impact fees are one category of them. So these projects, you wouldn't be able to make road impact fees. However, if Flatley were to come forward and say we had a school impact fee, we would be able to charge them a school impact fee, but we know that generally the children coming out of these apartments, the numbers have been relatively low. So I don't foresee that number, the actual amount that we would be able to charge being that high. But we could actually assess a school impact fee upon something like that. It's just limited to the roadway improvements that we can't.
So what's the point you're trying to make here about municipalities can require a developer to make improvements to a state highway by using their authority to require off-site improvements?
Just
That
that-
has nothing to do with impact fees?
Correct. Yeah, that's just when the
Exactly.
planning board negotiates with the developer to say, hey, look, this doesn't work, or they have a traffic study done that says, all right, we gotta add a turning lane in here. That's all their voluntary expense.
Okay, they can do that anywhere in town, right? It's not just state highways.
Right. But that's the limitation of if you're on a town roadway, you can charge an impact fee on it and have the town run the project and on something that they wanted to have done in that area if it's
This
necessary.
came out with legislation because of Londonderry. Londonderry was charging a developer an enormous impact fee on Route 102. And he refused to pay it, and he took it all the way to the Supreme Court. And they ruled in his favor, saying that the municipality does not have authority to charge an impact fee on a state road, because that's a state-maintained road. What we're trying to provide here is to say that, yes, we've had a lot of development in this town, Twin Bridge Apartments, 360, Executive Park, Gilbert Crossing, Edgebrook, and Slate. The big ones being Slate, Edgebrook, and Gilbert with almost over 1,000 units. We wouldn't be able to charge them an impact fee.
Right. But, and is this I probably should wait till the end of your presentation, but is this the exaction? Because Gilbert Crossing, they were required to put in that left turn lane southbound. That was without impact fees. They had to do that. They had to perform those.
Correct. We didn't do an exaction on that either, because that would have just been something that we would have charged them and then done the improvement ourselves.
But it had to be done. So things are done without the impact fee. And that's how we've done it that way for a long time. Connell's
Correct.
Plaza, I remember when that light went in there.
Right.
And all those type of things. The developer had to pay for a good part of that light.
Yep.
I believe for the town
CVS
share.
had to upgrade that light.
And CVS did the upgrade, okay. So anyhow, I
Yep.
should let you finish, I apologize.
Can I clarify just one thing that Paul said? You mentioned those that are on state road, and you said we would not have been able to charge them an impact fee.
Right.
Is that we would not be able to charge them a road impact fee, but if we had other impact fees, I don't know, a safety complex, would we have been able to charge them for that?
The answer is you can.
Okay.
The question is really going to come down to, can you find a project that you can use them on? That can be justified in order, the development would have caused. Like, we can't just say, Flatley came in and, you know what, we want a new baseball field halfway across town.
But if you said you were, okay, by this project, you're gonna increase the population of the town and the burden on first responders, and therefore it would apply to a safety complex impact.
Potentially, yeah. It's something along those lines. You have to create that legitimate connection.
Got it.
And
Thank you.
the caveat there, and that's probably where they're trying to go here, is you have to spend that money in 6 years. So you have to find that project, proportionally charge them their impact, and then build the whole damn thing in 6 years, which we've never been able to do in the past. We've had to give money back.
And also come up with the rest of that funding.
Because
whatever
we
you're charging
couldn't
them
get
is
our
not gonna cover
programs
it.
together enough to do
Right.
that.
Nancy?
Thank you. I just have a question. When I saw the water treatment and distribution facilities, and I think the slide before said something about you can only charge impact fees on, facilities owned or operated by the municipality. So Merrimack, like, we don't own the MBD.
Correct.
And I'm just thinking of when we do these developments, it's sort of this cycle of there's water has to go, is a precious commodity, and we're on alternative, watering days and that kind of stuff. And I know that MVD is asked. They said they asked when a developer comes in whether or not the MVD can handle it, and they always say yes, but they also say that there's a burden place. So I'm just wondering, in terms of these developments and numbers of people, there is an impact on the MVD and our water distribution system, but we don't, the municipality doesn't own it, it's a separate entity.
Right.
So where does that leave the MVD with water?
Yeah, I don't believe that we would have the right to charge an impact fee. I'm not positive on that because they are a separate entity. Because we don't own it. If it was municipally controlled, then I think it would be a different story.
Okay. So do you know if, I'm just thinking, if that's the case, and I'm guessing from what I'm thinking that seems the way it would be, is it only the town as a municipality can charge the impact fee, or does the MVD have the right to?
Just
some,
just the town.
just the town. So there's no way to. So what would happen if the MVD says not enough water, just for, a 400 apartment, we're done, there's just no more way more we can stretch it. What happens then?
I've never come across it, to be honest with
Yeah.
you, but I imagine what we typically put in a planning board conditional approval is a letter of water availability from MVD.
Yeah.
So if they say that they can't provide the water for it, then in theory, the planning board wouldn't be able to sign the plan and get it finished, final approval.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So the town, for the accounting of them, the town must account for impact fees separately from the general fund, and they can only be spent by the order of the town council. Law requires municipalities to track each dollar spent from beginning to end, why it was collected, when it was spent, exactly why, and at what time any unused portion was refunded to the developer. So there's significant amounts of effort that have to go into tracking everything to do with these things, in addition to being able to spend them on a certain project and have the limited time to do so. Just for comparison's sake, I looked at the top 15 communities in the state in terms of population. And I show here numbers 5 through 11 because we're square in the middle of them. And you see us, where they are highlighted. We do not have impact fee ordinances. Londonderry used to, but after that lawsuit Paul referenced, they did remove them. So they no longer have impact fees. The other communities, Rochester, Dover, Salem, Hudson, Bedford, all do. Of the top 15, it's Londonderry, us, Portsmouth, and Keene that do not have impact fees. And that's really what I have. Is there any other questions?
Robert, I'm thinking to the traffic light at Connell's, the Gilbert Crossing work, those type of things. With impact fees, would it negate, well, we can't do anything with the road one up at the north end, but at Connell's Plaza, would you be charging impact fees and then still have these opportunities at the planning process to require those type of expansions, or is it because you're collecting impact fee? Or if you're doing it with an impact fee, you no longer can add those things on, you just have to take care of it? If I made any sense in that
So
commentary.
you're saying, does
I
does the developer do it themselves, or is it?
No,
does,
if we have a road impact fee for Connell's Plaza years ago now, a million years ago, would we, if we had impact fees, would we be as well adding on top of that whole project, the light installation coming out of their pocket as well? Or would it only be through impact fees?
If we had the impact fees, we would assess the road impact fee. We would then come up with the remainder of that money to get, say there was no light there. If we really wanted a light, it really needed it, traffic, then that's what we would do. We'd come up with the rest of it, get that light that we desperately wanted. I'm thinking something like that example is more along probably this intersection here. If there was no light at Babusick and DW Highway, so we have a road impact fee, a project goes, I don't know, across the street or something, they would prepare, to do their proportional share of what it would be for that light, and we desperately want it, then there we go, we got some money to put that light in.
I remember when there was no light there. But I guess, if there are impact fees, is there a downside on the other part of the planning process and all? Is there a negative to it?
In terms of the planning process, not really, because all we do is do the study, say, we run the calculation that says, okay, you've got X amount of units or whatnot, you've got this project, you owe us this amount of money. And that just goes in as a part of their conditional approval, and then our job is done. the rest of it becomes finance, building's gotta make sure that they collect it, and finance has to account for it and track it and do all of that. I will say that, where was I going? With there is, I don't think I mentioned it, but there is an appeal opportunity for developers that, as Paul said, they can appeal it straight to Superior Court. You can't appeal it to the ZBA, but they could appeal the assessment of the fee straight to court.
So Robert, I think what Finley's asking is that if we had an impact fee structure in town for sidewalks, because I know we looked at that and we don't have a sidewalk plan, so we can never have a developer give us money for a sidewalk. So if we had an impact fee for sidewalks, would that hinder your planning board, or the planning board, not yours, the planning board's request for Merrimack 360 to put a sidewalk in front of their units when they built?
I see. Not necessarily. It depends. They can still negotiate. The planning board still has the ability to negotiate whatever improvements they would like. It's really just how much is it worth at that point for the cost of the sidewalk if the town wanted to get that improvement done faster in the right of way. If the developer pays their share of something in front of their lot, then we have to bear the rest of the cost, other than them just bearing the brunt of it as a requirement and doing it themselves.
So there is a downside. The downside
And
is.
I thought so for a
The
while, 'cause
downside
this has
is
been-
that they're gonna give the money to the town of Merrimack, and then the town of Merrimack's gonna have to do the project themselves. Hire contractors, hire engineers, do the project themselves, versus having the people, individuals, in this case of a sidewalk, to do the project and have them bear the brunt of the cost to put the sidewalk in.
And
They would
also-
still pay their share of the cost, but the town of Merrimack would have to do all the work, get the contractor, oversee the project, things, which we oversee the projects anyways with our own people, but, so there would be a little bit of a downside to something of a sidewalk impact fee on something of that sort. The other thing is the 6-year limitation. We'd have to be lock, stock, and barrel, have the plan on the shelf that we're gonna go ahead and go with this project, know that we're gonna collect money from XYZ, and then just get the approval and go ahead and do it within those 6 years.
And also, partly for me, is these become taxpayers. So Gilbert Crossing's in there, there's very few children out of Gilbert Crossing and similar apartments in town now. And so the impact to the school district is kind of small anymore for the number of units that we find. So they're property taxpayers now, and I don't know.
And the other thing too is that the planning board, when these projects do come in, they do a study, correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, but they do a study of the fiscal responsibilities of the town and whether or not they are a negative, meaning they're gonna use more services and cost the town money versus the other way. And normally with some of these projects, like this, say, XYZ apartment complex, because there's not a lot of children in there, the school has a big plus and the town might have the negative, but compared as the town as a whole, sometimes they come in as a neutral project. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah,
I know I didn't do a good job explaining that.
With the CUP projects, it's a little bit different because they're required to do a fiscal analysis, and they can't get off the ground if they can't prove that they are tax positive at the end of the day, or fiscally impact positive at the end of the day. That requirement doesn't exist on everyday site plans and subdivisions.
So the bigger projects, which those 6 would have went through this fiscal responsibility.
Would it be possible to get with some of the towns that do use impact fees, see what they've collected, what they've been able to expend, and the net benefit to those towns through the use of impact fees?
Yeah, we could do that.
I would be
maybe find
curious
how much
to
was
know that.
returned.
Yeah. I mean, what I don't want to do is blindly put this in the too hard to do category.
Right.
And then other towns have cracked the code and figured this out and have used it as a way to do capital improvement projects.
Correct. And that's why we're bringing it forward to the town council to see, you know,
My fear is we're a day late and a dollar short, because we should be able to.
Absolutely.
You know, if the impact fees were in existence 10 years ago, we could, or 6 years ago, whatever the limit is.
Yeah.
And we had that goal in mind to be able to have all these impact fees from all this development that we've had, having an impact on our services, the police and fire. But we already had planned, and they're paying their proportion.
Yep.
I see your point, but I think we're a day late and a dollar short. But it's worth, I agree with you, it's worth looking at it.
Jennifer?
Another factor could be, what are they having for attorney fees? Like, how many appeals are they having to the Supreme Court? So that would be costly. And also, how much extra time does it take for staff to maintain all these records and track everything?
Part of the equation.
Staff time, once we have the check and it's deposited, speaking from finance, once we have the check and it's deposited, it's usually a once a year entry, because we have to pay them interest and we pay it on a yearly basis, so it's a once a year entry. It would be more of, okay, we got 7 projects that put in for the sidewalk, for using that. The sidewalk project that we're doing, we have 7 developers, all right, they paid $100,000, now figuring out their proportionate share of the project that might be up $25,000 or $30,000. You know, how do you proportion that out? That takes a little bit of time. But staff time with the reporting, maybe 4 hours a year once we get the money deposited. So it isn't, on my end, on the finance end, wasn't large, a big, you know, pull. But for getting it, and the big thing is that if we want to do this, we need a plan in place, that these are what the impact fees are going to be used for. So we would need a plan in place, but we can check with other towns. You know, Bedford's done it, Hudson's done it, other towns have done it. We can check to see what they did and what they used them for, and see how they used it. I don't know about Hudson, but I don't think Bedford's used it for a safety complex. For that, I think they used it mostly for road improvements and sidewalks and things of that sort.
But I mean, we have a capital improvement plan, right?
Yeah.
We know what big expenditures we're gonna have within the next 6 years.
All right, we
We
just have,
should be able to say, hey, this is what we wanna focus on right now.
yeah, well, that's all part of how to, when you set this up, this ordinance, how to set the ordinance up, and that's the consultant that would help us
Yep.
develop that.
Nancy?
Yeah, I agree with Andy, and I'd be interested in the limitation around 6 years to see how the other communities are managing that. But again, if that's in statute, it's something too that could possibly be changed. It's 6 years now, but doesn't mean it has to be, right?
Potentially.
So,
Potentially,
Just,
they went from 7 to 6, though.
yeah,
Because it was 7 years for a long time, and then they
Yeah.
dropped it down to 6 because of issues with towns just holding people's monies. The big thing, to answer your other question, I just thought of this, the big thing around July 1st, all these firms from all over the country give us right-to-know requests of the impact fees. Show us all your impact fees. And they want a list because they want to go to that company and say, I can get your money back for you. So, and that's burdensome when you have to do those FOIA requests for impact fees, knowing well that you already contacted a developer and saying, just ask for your money back, please. Here's your money. Just tell me where you want it sent to. Because what happens a lot of times is some of these people are, especially with developments, they're out, change names, change locations. So, but that's also, but like 4 to 5 hours, probably a year total staff time. But we can get all this information and bring it back at a later meeting. We wanted to bring up the discussion to see, you know, how the council felt, and whether or not to pursue it, and we'll continue to pursue it.
Very good. So, Tom?
Just real quick, far be it from me to suggest that we shouldn't pursue it, but in the last 20 years, when I've been on this council, we've talked about this 3 or 4 different times, and every time convinced ourselves that it was not worth the trouble and the concerns to get into impact fees because of the 6-year limit, because of having all of the money for the project, because by the time somebody comes up and you've decided what needs to be done, if we were trying to build the municipal fire or police, we've been talking about that for years and years. If we've been assessing people for impact fees 5 years ago, we'd be looking at giving them the money back next year because we can't come up with enough funding to actually do that project. And time and time again, we've reviewed this on the planning board, we've reviewed it in this town council or the board of selectmen. So look at it again. You know, maybe it's the right thing to do every 5 or 6 years, or every time we have a new community development director, to give them something to go wear their souls out on. But I think we're going to be disappointed, and but I'll be happy to see whatever comes out of any effort.
Yeah, sure. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Robert. You're welcome. All right. Next item, number 4 under new business. Council's consider the acceptance and expenditure of a grant from the New Hampshire Office of Highway Safety for driving under the influence patrols in the amount of $1,600 for the Merrimack PD pursuant to RSA 31:95B, Charter Article 8, Section 15. Kevin Markey, how are you?
Good evening, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Eric, could you just pull the microphone closer to you, please?
Sure. Was that better?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so for the driving under the influence enforcement grant, it's in the amount of $1,600. It would fund 5 4-hour patrols. The patrols would focus on DUI enforcement and would occur on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights, as well as during some special events and holidays between the hours of 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. in the morning. I brought numbers for all the details tonight for the other details, warnings, summonses, things like that. But for this detail, this specific detail, we were unable to fill the details this past year. So we have no numbers, no activity for those details.
Does anybody have any questions on this one? Somebody like to make a motion? Would somebody like to make a motion?
I move to approve the acceptance and expenditure of the grant from the New Hampshire Office of Highway Safety for driving under the influence patrols, and to authorize the town manager to sign any documents necessary.
And I'll make a second.
Motion by Tom Koenig, second by Mackenzie. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? 700. Number 5, council to consider, the acceptance and expenditure of a grant from the New Hampshire Office of Highway Safety for distracted driving patrols, the amount of $2,600 for the Merrimack PD, pursuant to RSA 31:95B and Charter Article 8, Section 15.
Okay, the distracted driving enforcement grant is in the amount of $2,600 and would fund 9 4-hour patrols during morning and evening rush hour traffic between the hours of 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. These patrols would address distracted and negligent driving, including using handheld electronic device, failing to clear snow from vehicles, and as well as other distractions within the vehicle. This past year, we conducted 9 patrols. We issued 104 warnings and 13 summons.
Wow, 104 warnings, wow.
Great.
Don't you feel better that it was just warnings, Mr. Chair?
No, of course. That's why I brought this information. It's, for me.
See, they're
it's
prepared for you.
A lot of it is, I mean, if it's a habitual person who's been whacked for using a cell phone 15 times, okay, but generally I like to see it utilized for educational purposes, if that makes any sense. And I prefer the lower percentage of warnings versus actual summonses, I guess.
You want a higher percentage of warnings versus some.
I do, yes.
You said lower, but.
I apologize, thank you. I correct.
And you could have rephrased that the other way around, but it would have, anyway.
So, and that's the reason I asked those questions. So there's actually a little higher than I like to see, but it's bearable.
But they're prepared for you, is my point.
I know, well, I think Paul gave a heads up again.
No,
They were
already
ready.
know. They already know.
So,
They laughed at me when I asked the question.
because they already know.
They already knew.
You've done this too many years now. All right, the pleasure of the council. Nancy?
Oh, now you look this way. I'd like to make a motion. I would move the acceptance and expenditures of a grant from the New Hampshire Office of Highway Safety for distracted driving patrols in the amount of $2,600 for the Merrimack Police Department pursuant to RSA 31:95-B and Charter Article 8-15.
Motion by Nancy Murphy.
And for the town manager to sign.
And I'll make a second.
And a motion by Nancy Murphy, second by Mackenzie. If there's no further discussion, call the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed or abstained? 7-0-0. Number 6, under new business, the council to consider the acceptance and expenditure of a grant from the New Hampshire Office of Highway Safety for high visibility mobilization patrols in the amount of $3,400 for the Merrimack PD pursuant to RSA 3195B and Charter Article 8, Section 15.
Okay, the High Visibility Mobilization Enforcement Grant is in the combined amount of $3,400, which would fund 11 4-hour mobilization patrols consisting of seatbelt enforcement, DUI enforcement, and distracted driving. These high visibility mobilizations are statewide coordinated events with other participating agencies that are conducted on specific dates and times to enforce each specific issue. This past year, under the seatbelt enforcement mobilization, we conducted 4 patrols, issued 32 warnings and 8 summonses, and made 1 arrest. Under the distracted driving mobilization, we conducted 4 patrols, issued 22 warnings, 8 summons, and made 3 arrests. And as far as the DUI mobilization, that we were unable to fill as well, so we don't have numbers for that.
What was the second segment, 22 warnings and 8? What was that one for?
Let's see, that was the distracted driving mobilization.
Okay. All right. What's the pleasure of the council?
Make a motion to accept and expend a grant from the New Hampshire Office Highway Safety for high visibility mobilization patrols in the amount of $3,400 and authorize the town manager to sign any and all necessary documentation.
Second. Motion by Andy, seconded by Tom Koenig. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? 7-0-0. Okay.
Last but not least.
I know, where am I here? Speed enforcement patrols. Council to consider the acceptance and expenditure of a grant from the New Hampshire Office of Highway Safety for safety enforcement patrols in the amount of $1,600 for the Merrimack Police Department pursuant to RSA 3195B and Charter Article 8, Section 15.
Okay, the speed enforcement grant, as you said, is in the amount of $1,600, which would fund 5 4-hour patrols. And the patrols would address problematic motor vehicle speed issues at various locations in town. This past year, we conducted 5 patrols, issued 63 warnings, and 14 summons.
Any further questions? Captain, none of these are roadblocks?
Correct.
Correct, okay, thank you. If there's no further discussion, I'll accept a motion if somebody'd like.
I'd like to make a motion to accept and expend a grant from the New Hampshire Office Highway Safety for speed enforcement patrols in the amount of $1,600 and authorize town manager to sign any and all necessary documentation.
Second.
Motion by Andy, seconded by Jennifer. If there's no further discussion, call the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 7-0-0. And now, the next one is council to consider the acceptance and expenditure of a donation in the amount of $1,000 from Digital Credit Union to the the Merrimack Police Department to be used towards providing programs and services that make a difference in the community pursuant to RSA 3195B and Charter Article 8, Section 15.
Yes, so we're asking for the ability to accept this, to assist us with some of our community events in town, our open house, our Citizens Academy, National Night Out, as well as some of the other events that we have. On occasion, we have to buy snacks, beverages, toys, games, things like that for these events. So this would allow us to make it a little bit easier to afford that stuff.
Excellent. And Digital Credit Union is famous for stepping to the plate all the time. Does anybody have any questions? Seeing none? Nancy?
Make a motion. And the town council, we will, let's see, a motion to accept and expend a donation in the amount of $1,000 from DCU to the Merrimack Police Department to be used towards providing programs and services that make a difference in the community pursuant to RSA 31:95, Section B, and Charter Article 8, Section 15. And with thanks to DCU and the town manager to sign any and all necessary documentation.
I'll make a second.
Motion by Nancy Murphy, seconded by Mackenzie. There's no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? 700 with thanks. Thanks, Captain.
Great.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much. Have a good night.
9 under new business, the council to consider the acceptance and expenditure of a donation in the amount of $1,000 from Digital Credit Union to the Merrimack Fire Rescue Department to be used towards equipment for the new aerial truck pursuant to RSA 3195B, Charter Article 8, Section 15.
The fire department would like to thank DCU for this generous donation of $1,000 for equipping their new aerial tower truck. And look forward to finding what equipment is needed so they can purchase it.
Very good.
So they don't have a plan? They don't have a plan for $1,000 additional equipment that wasn't already in the budget?
They're looking at what the needs of what they need to put on the truck, and they would use this money to help offset some of the budgeted cost.
Right. Anything further? We'll accept a motion, if someone's so inclined.
I'd like to make a motion to accept and expend a donation in the amount of $1,000 from the DCU to the Merrimack Fire Rescue Department to be used towards equipment for the new aerial truck pursuant to RSA 31:95-B and Charter Article 8-15, and to authorize town manager to sign any and all necessary documentation.
And I'll
Motion
make
by
a
Nancy.
second.
Motion by Andy, seconded by Mackenzie. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 700. All right, next on the agenda, Nicholas is here. The council to issue a proclamation designating October 20th, 2024 as Community Media Day in the town of Merrimack to promote the importance of community TV, community resources within the town's media division, and programming available on Merrimack TV. That's a long day for you, Nick.
It has been. It's been an exciting day. This would be the third year that Merrimack celebrates Community Media Day. This year I see our Community Media Day celebration as an opportunity to celebrate the stories that we share through Merrimack TV. Merrimack TV staff doesn't simply cover a game or a concert. I feel that my staff and I are sharing the stories of our young athletes and young musicians. When we cover meetings like tonight, we're documenting the decisions made that move Merrimack's story forward. And for 20 years, any resident or nonprofit group has been welcome to tell their story in our community TV studio, where their program plays on our cable channel and now is uploaded to the Merrimack TV app. If this proclamation is to move forward, we will celebrate throughout the week with special programming, and then we'll host a presentation on Tuesday, October 22nd at 7 p.m. called Community Storytelling as Journalism. We would like to invite any Merrimack resident or nonprofit group to get a first-hand look at how our Merrimack Moment series is produced. That is our 3-time award-winning storytelling series that puts a spotlight on the people that make Merrimack a unique place to live. So I hope that you move this proclamation forward.
Thank you, Nick. I'm actually going to read the proclamation into the record. it's Town of Merrimack Town Council proclamation, Community Media Day. Whereas community media connects residents to their neighbors, community organizations, schools, and local government. And whereas access to information in today's media environment is critical for the healthy functioning of our community. And whereas the sharing of ideas and information helps to build understanding and values within a community. And whereas community media organizations provide a means for communities to tell their stories, hear each other's stories, and create new stories together. And whereas community media organizations provide local information to the community that may not be covered by commercial media. And whereas community media organizations provide people with the resources necessary for the creation, sharing, consumption of knowledge and ideas through media. And whereas community media is an important resource for participating in local democracy. And whereas in many communities, people are not aware of the diverse and valuable programming on public education and government access channels or community radio channels. And whereas communities will benefit from increased general awareness of viewing audiences for and creators of media content created by and for the community. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Town Council of the Town of Merrimack, hereby proclaim October 20th, 2024 as Community Media Day in Merrimack, and all people are hereby called upon to promote the importance of community media resources within the town's media division and programming available on Merrimack TV. Proclaimed this 26th day of September 2024 by the Merrimack Town Council.
Second.
A motion by Tom Koenig, seconded by Nancy Harrington. Any further discussion on the motion? Call the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstained? 700. You know we love the work you do, Nicholas, so keep shining and do what you do best.
Thank you.
Thanks
I've got
for
a
everything.
fantastic staff.
And thank them as well. It's
Absolutely.
it's amazing. It's a wonderful group.
Most of them probably just heard that, so that's great.
They're still here. It's been a long day for all of us.
For everybody, yes.
Yes.
They were out this morning for the, as you guys know.
And so were you.
For the ribbon cutting.
Yeah.
That's, so, very, very good. And this, pass that down. I don't know, you take that for your area, or do they put that at Town Hall?
Sure. Sounds good.
All right, next on the agenda, cable franchise fees discussion. The council to be presented with details of the media fund balance as it relates to cable franchise fees and a request to increase the cable franchise fees. The other one was so much fun.
What's that?
The last agenda item was a lot more fun.
Well, let's keep it fun.
Oh, there we go.
For those that don't know, I should probably explain what a franchise fee is. Franchise fee is in our franchise agreement with presently Comcast. Any cable provider could choose to do business here in Merrimack. We have one cable provider. And part of that agreement is to receive up to 5% gross annual revenues from cable TV subscribers. This would not be the internet portion of a cable bill, just solely traditional cable TV. We can request up to 5% as franchise revenue. Since 2009, the town has received 3.75%, so there has not been a change since 2009. Prior to that, we did receive 5%, so the only time this has been changed in 15 years was as a decrease. This town council has traditionally dedicated those funds to the town's media division, which the public has come to know as Merrimack TV. The reason why we want to adjust the franchise revenue from 3.75% to 5%, customers have continued to cut the cable cord and ditch the cable portion of their bill, maybe keep their internet streaming service. And as we've learned over the past few years, people are leaving Comcast altogether because there is another internet service provider here in Merrimack now. There are also young adults, younger families that have moved to Merrimack that aren't subscribing to cable at all. They're just going the internet route. And this is going to be a trend that will continue for the foreseeable future. It's something that I've brought up during the budget process and at different points of the year, not only to the town council, but also members of the community. It's just been a trend in the industry. and it's one that's going to continue. Merrimack isn't alone, where we're starting to see a decrease in the revenue that we've received from Comcast. There are other communities in New Hampshire. I'm just citing a few here. Nashua, Bedford, and Portsmouth are also going through this right now. I could call any community access center in New Hampshire, and they would likely say the same thing if they're paying attention to the check that they're receiving quarterly from their cable provider. Some are more extreme than others. In the case of Nashua, they receive the education channel receives a percent of the franchise revenue, so a percent of the percent. They're getting hit harder, and that's the part of their access station that largely covers things like sports. So they're getting hit hard right now. This is a chart of how your traditional cable TV subscriber versus what is called as non-pay TV viewers. Obviously, they're still paying, but it's not through the traditional means of like a cable provider. So maybe they have an internet connection and they're subscribing to Hulu, Netflix, or Max, or any given number of streaming services. For the first time, it seems that those who have cut the cable cord are now outweighing those that have cable. I talked to our Comcast reps this morning to get a number of how many just traditional cable subscribers we have in Merrimack. It's 5,287, so almost 5,300 cable subscribers, which honestly shocked me. For years I would go in front of the council. I've been here for 20 years now in this position, and for a while it was always this sweet spot of 8,000. We had, at one point I would say we had nearly 8,000 homes, and nearly all of them subscribed to cable. This town has grown. We know that there's more than 8,000 homes now, and barely 5,300 of them have cable TV. I can't see us going backward. We're not going back to Blockbuster. We're not necessarily going to put landlines in our house. This is it. This is where we're at. I've worked with Paul the past couple weeks to talk about the financials and our predictions, and I'd like to turn it over to Paul now, if I could.
So what I did here, working with Nicholas, is our franchise fee revenues for the last 5 years. As you can see, in 2019-20, we were just under $385,000. In 21-22, it peaked to almost $400,000. And then we have seen a steady decline since 2021-22, losing about 7% of the overall revenue that we would get to approximately $368,000 for 23-24. So our revenues are going down because people are cutting the cord and moving away from Comcast. The next slide shows that over the next 9 years, we chose a 9-year period to look at projecting out. And if we kept our franchise fees at 3.75% in the year 27-28, we'd be out of money in our fund balance and our expenses. We used a modest increase for expenses of 3%. We used a modest decrease of franchise fee revenue going down 3.75% in that period. So as you can see, we will eat into our fund balance from year 24-25 all the way down to 27-28. We'd be at basically having to cover about $32,000 of the media budget. And the media budget, they do everything that Nick's been doing over the last sports, everything else. We also looked at a new topic, and it's brand new. A couple of communities are starting to look at these. They are, I'm going to get the word wrong, so I'm going to ask Nick, what's the word again?
Underwriting.
Underwriting. They're underwriting their sports broadcast. So they would charge 5 or 6 vendors an underwriting fee to be part of the broadcast. And it would be like one from a bank, one from a restaurant, one from a hardware store. They would be individual corporations or entities that they would be, so there wouldn't be competition amongst competition. It wouldn't be 5 banks underwriting these events. It would be one for the whole season, for the sports season. And Nick can explain that a little bit better than I can, and I'm going to turn it back to him to explain that.
Sure. There was a couple conferences that I attended in June that talked about underwriting and alternative revenue streams, but it just so happens that our neighbors here in Bedford have aggressively researched this over the past few months, and they're about to launch a program where they're offering the underwriting program that Paul just mentioned, where an entity pays up to $5,000 for the sports year. So that would cover, we'll say, if they have 5 sponsorships at $5,000, that's $30,000 to put into their, to put towards, their community media center, and they would receive underwriting sponsorship mentions during every live broadcast. They also have a radio station as well, so it'd be during their radio coverage as well, and PSAs, promos, things like that. So there is those possibilities to offer underwriting in the future. We may definitely have to take a look at our policies that need to be updated for that to happen, but that's one of the few ways that there could be alternative revenue streams.
And we were looking at beginning underwriting in 2025 and 26. So we'd let Bedford be the guinea pig, see how it works out, and then basically go from there with their policies and procedures moving forward, 25, 26. If you click on the next slide, Nick. Same thing, we did projected revenue and expenses over the next 9 years using if we increase the franchise fees to 5%. And as you can see, we are still in 28, 29, 29, 30 is where we kind of flip, where the revenues that we get from franchise fees are less than what our expenditures are less than what we're going to propose expenditures. The same 3.75% decrease in cable franchise revenues and an increase of 3%. What this will do, go ahead, Nick, to the next slide, is this would be our fund balance. It looks kind of like a bell curve. And basically that will take us from 24, 25 all the way out to 32, 33. It'd be the year 33, 34 where we'd run out of money in our fund balance. So it would give us, by raising to 5%, if you go back 2 slides, Nick, from 27, 28, so basically 6 years. Go to the last slide again, Nick. 6 years of additional planning for the town on the media division that would have to be funded by taxes starting in 33, 34, if the projections are accurate, which I think we really did use a very, very conservative decrease in revenue over year, because I think more and more people are cutting the cord. You buy a new cell phone, you get Hulu, you get Disney, you can get a subscription. I have them all. Paramount, Peacock, you can get free. You can go free. Peacock and Paramount, you can get them for free if you want commercials. Netflix is $5.99, you get commercials. Amazon Prime, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you get Amazon Prime TV. You would pay for Apple TV. And Paramount now gives you Showtime included. So you don't need to pay Comcast for Showtime. So there are a lot of things out there and a lot of, when we first talked about this, I can remember the conversation. Eileen was sitting here and Nick brought this up about cutting the cord, and this happened, maybe 4 or 5 years ago we started this discussion about cutting the cord, and this is going to be something in the future that we have to look at. And the reality is, after COVID, people started cutting the cord, and they started to go to these streaming services because they became more readily available to them and easier for them to access them. So, you got YouTube TV, you got Apple TV, you got Roku TV, to name a few. I could go down the list. We all know them. We all see those ads. We all see the TVs that when you buy them. And the other thing that's happening is that I think a transition of people who bought TVs, now it's easier for them to get these devices. you buy a new TV, you got a Netflix button, you got an Amazon Prime button, you got a Hulu button, and you got a one of the other buttons for free services that you can add. You don't have to start hunting and pecking through many different screens. They're right there for you. So we're here tonight to ask to increase the fee from 3.75 to 5%. I think by doing that, we'll be able to fund the media division from franchise fees to at least 31, 32 compared to 27, 28. So we'll at least get 4 to 5 more years out of doing that by just increasing it that 1.25%.
So you're saying your projections are based on a continued decline in subscribers?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So it's just the people who have cable TV that are funding our media?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The people, and for years, we were started out like $150,000 from the media fund balance to help offset taxes. It went up to $250,000. And 3 years ago, Councilor Koenig brought up the point saying, if we keep doing this, media is going to be out of money, and we're going to have to fund them through the budget. So we held back on offsetting the tax rate with media, with franchise fees to build it up. And we weaned down our fund balance from $800,000 down to $200,000, just under $200,000 today by over the last 6 to 8 years with it. And right now, we're seeing a change, and people are leaving. People are leaving the cable portion behind. Now you can get a meg service for $79.99 and stream 12 devices in your home all at once. So.
Yeah, I mean, the reason it was lowered is because we were flush.
Yes, we
in
were.
those days, and so they decided to lower the fee. And for that reason, going the other direction, I think we're going to have.
And the other thing too is with everything going on. Nick brought this up in 2009. We renegotiated in 2019. We have a 10-year negotiation on a franchise fee with Comcast until July 1st.
January 2029.
I thought it was July 2029. July 1st, right around the July time period in 2029 is when our contract's up, our 10-year period. We don't know what that contract's going to look like going forward. I know to get a 10-year deal in 2019, Comcast was a little leery. They wanted to do 5 with a 5-year extension. Eileen basically said, no, we're doing 10. And Comcast said, yeah, okay. Brian from Comcast said, yeah, we'll give you 10 years. But we don't know what the future is going to look like after July 1st, 2029 with these fees. So, I believe that, years ago, media might have been kind of a want, but I think Nick has turned the division into a need for the community, especially doing those PSAs and everything else. He's really turned the division more of a need, and I know Nancy, Councilor Harrington, that way back when you asked Nick at a meeting, how are you going to make this department? Give me your projection. Show me how you're going to make this department a need for the community. And I think the media division has changed that over, and it's becoming more of a need for the community, especially, hearing from kids and parents, just overhearing them say, yeah, my grandmother watched the game and she's in Florida and she could see me play, and it's like she's there and seeing me play and things of that sort. So he's taken the sports to a next level, but he's also taken the other things, the Merrimack Moments and the PSAs, and now we're doing the radio station. So we're taking, the media division is not just taping meetings anymore. So it's how are we going to fund them going forward, and this is one way that we can help fund them going forward and come up with a plan in the next 5 years of taxpayer-based funding for this. And this is a department of 3 people. So it isn't like hundreds of people, on the set and things of that sort. This is a department of 3 people that tape all the meetings, tape all the concerts, tape the games, do the games. We have volunteers out there that will help broadcast the games. So it's not like this budget is blown out of proportion. It's a pretty tight budget. So.
Does anybody have any, Tom?
So I'm opposed to this increase, and I'll be happy to explain why. As you keep pointing out, there's less and less people that are paying this franchise fee, and we're trying to increase that franchise fee on the less and less number of people. Which I think is wrong. I think if we need to fund this, we need to fund it. Back 15, 20 years ago, media was only available via cable. There was no other way to see any of the town meetings or anything like that. Today, that is not the case in any way, shape, or form. You can pick up your phone and watch any media program that they put out there. So to have media be funded completely, or completely by franchise fees, is a huge tax on a very small portion of the population. And we're talking now, the request is to increase that tax on those people, which are getting smaller and smaller. And I'll tell you right now, I'm going to go cut my cable because I don't watch cable, and I haven't watched it in so long, it's ridiculous. And yet I've been paying it on a monthly basis. All I need is the internet, and I can get that in multiple places. So I'm going to be one of the number of people that are cutting the cable. There's no point for me to be paying that tax. And there's therefore no reason for me to be suggesting that we should increase that tax on those few people that are paying for cable because they like to watch TV. I haven't watched TV in probably 5 or 10 years. So there's no way I can justify it. Back 20 years ago, when media was only available in cable, it made sense to allow the people that were watching the cable, that were paying for the cable, to be able to pay for it. And back then we said the media has to be funded by the cable. It's not a taxpayer requirement because a large number of the taxpayers couldn't access that media unless they were paying for the cable. And so it made sense to me. Now, today, the media has grown to be a much more viable and valid organization. It's useful to the community, to more and broader portions of the community. I think it's appropriate that we plan on paying for that service through the government fees. And that means everybody has to participate. Right now, it's kind of like the difference between the gasoline tax that is used to pay for our roads and all of the electrical vehicles, the EVs that are out there paying no gas tax. They're getting use of the roads for nothing. And so the only people that are paying for the roads are the people that are paying the gas tax. The same thing is going on here. Right now, everybody in town has access to the media services and is benefiting from that. But only the cable franchise people are being asked to pay for it. And I think that's wrong. I think it's time for us to bite the bullet and swap it over. And if that means we drop the cable fees altogether, maybe that's a good idea. But I certainly am not going to vote to increase them at this point.
Okay.
Jennifer?
I agree. That's why I asked the question about, was it all on the cable subscribers? So I agree, the same thing. You're only 5,200 households are being charged for everybody to benefit from this.
Thomas, I'm glad he said something because as you get caught up in the moment now finally, because sometimes people will vote and not tell you why they voted against something, so I definitely appreciate that. Andy?
Yeah, Tom stole the show, and I'm glad he did. It disproportionately impacts a smaller and smaller portion of our population. I was going to say, initially I was thinking this is kind of a state issue. They need to take this up, and maybe we should be charging, for internet as well. But to Tom's point, if we just move it over to the regular part of the budget and fund it through the property taxes and do away with franchise taxes, then everybody pays an equal share anyways. And so maybe that's the way to do it, or maybe the right way to do it is for the State House to take it up and we charge everybody that purchases internet, as well as cable, a franchise tax. But either way, however we solve it, I agree with Tom, disproportionately impacting a small population of the town isn't the way to fund the media that everybody uses. And Merrimack TV app that works on your phone has nothing to do with cable TV, and so it's a good point.
What you just described is that the law hasn't caught up to the industry. There has been talk of legislation to basically have internet service providers or streaming services pay into a franchise fee, the same sort of thing. But until that is legislated, or until that comes to be, this is how we've been funded.
Are there any states that are actually doing it?
Something I read was 13 cities and/or states that have looked into that. Massachusetts, they've tried to do it. It hasn't happened yet. It'd be great to see something like that happen in New Hampshire. It seems like a lot of places that have tried, it just hasn't happened.
So it might be something the state reps could start looking at.
October 10th, isn't that what you said?
All the ones who want to increase taxes, right? Yeah.
Well, again, it would be a fee if you're using it. I think you either raise a tax that way. You're right, a fee is a tax, you're absolutely right. So you go through the property taxes. You're absolutely right. What alternative you have? I concur with you. I personally don't think there's a debate as to the need for it, because they've already justified their existence. They've already demonstrated their value to the community. The argument is, how do we pay for it? Pure and simple.
And they've taken away the argument that you have to have cable in order to see their
Correct.
services.
Correct.
That's not there anymore, right?
So if we were, in fact, and I'm not against this, if we were in fact going to make it a part of our budget, then I would say we wouldn't need to double dip and also maintain the 3.75 for the cable. Because those, for example, I have cable, which I'm gonna cut soon too. But let's say I have it, and let's say we decide that we're going to budget it in the taxes. Then I'm also gonna pay the 3.75. It's an either or. It has to be, if we're gonna go over, we're gonna go over, so that there's equity across the board. And there's also, now I know that I watch my grandchildren's, and I have to pay for the service to watch their games. And I'm not sure if that should be.
In this district?
No.
Right.
It's in Rhode Island. It's outside.
They have,
So if you're
Oh,
paying,
I know.
if
No,
you're
but
paying
this is not
someone
the
in-
only one.
if you're paying you're probably getting scammed. If you're paying someone to watch Merrimack TV sports.
No, it's out of
Okay.
state. It's out of state.
Gotcha.
And actually, it's also, this is the second time I've had to do that. It was another state that I had to pay to watch.
they do have services.
And it was like $3. I'm not saying.
I would be interested, and I don't know if it's before budget season or during budget season, but have a discussion about the underwriting and some of the other sources of revenue. And if we're going to change it over to the budget, let's kind of figure out a strategy, how we want to move forward and what we're going to do with it.
Right.
Budget's coming quick.
Coming quick.
That's true.
Winter's coming.
But I think my comfort level needs to be, does the council as a whole concur with my opinion about maintaining it one way or the other?
I really think,
Maintaining the media services one way or the other.
Absolutely.
I just
Yeah.
want to know that that's
Yeah,
yeah, and
I agree. I'd support the media services. I would just like to see a strategy on how we're going to.
That's all I'm
curious.
curious.
Just to remind you.
I wanted a comfort level that is a consensus
no, and we will continue with the 375 for the time being,
until,
until probably next July 1st would be probably when it would end, if it's included in the budget, because I do believe that we shouldn't double dip people on both sides of the aisle. Understood where the council's coming from, wanted to bring it forward to you for an option, and fully plan on, now that we understand you fully plan on funding media as a regular department, He gets to go through the regular department
Oh,
budgets
what
now.
fun now.
That's it, so.
I was
But,
just gonna say that.
But,
Well,
yeah, we'll be able to, we understand.
We also have,
Hopefully you appreciate the appreciation we have for the department,
I
as
feel that,
reflected by the discussion we're having.
are you asking me that?
No, I want you, I'm saying I hope you feel secure in what we're saying.
I hope
That
so.
we
I
appreciate
hope so.
that.
And I also have every kind thing that you've said about my department and I on tape. So we're gonna do a supercut, and before we present the budget, we'll just play all those nice, kind things.
Well done.
Yeah, no.
I also just want to point out that, you know, we are trying to maintain our relevancy. That's been a big mission of ours. We want to maintain, community media is important. What we do with the community is valuable. We wanted to maintain relevancy, knowing that there's 3,000 some odd less homes that aren't watching us. How are they going to discover us? That's why we have the Merrimack TV app. We want people to download that app. That's your window into your community. So we've had to maintain relevancy with changing to this streaming and digital age. And we didn't want to get lost. And I fear that there's other access centers, not only in the state, but throughout the country that aren't making that switch. You're kind of joining the dark side in a way, because this is what we're losing. In theory, we're losing funding. And we're joining what's kind of taking that funding from us. So it's a double-edged sword, I guess. But my staff and I definitely feel appreciated by this council and the town manager. And we absolutely love our jobs, and we are passionate about how we serve the community. So thanks for taking the time to listen tonight.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And the legislature can be working on looking into it.
Item 12 under
You realize the
new
corporations
business.
are gonna
The
fight
council
that tooth
received
and
an
nail.
update
of
on the
course they
MS
will.
434.
Although it's not, no skin off their back. It should be.
So this time of year, I can't believe we're saying this, school's back in session. The MS1's been filed. MS 434 is revenues for the town of Merrimack for the budget process. Did we get a bite of the apple to see if the revenues we projected in February and March are actually coming to fruition, or if we need to change any? And really, why I'm coming in front of you tonight is for two reasons. I'm going to show you that there are some revenues that are being changed. But also, when we did the budget, we were looking at about $984,500 out of fund balance to be used to offset taxes. So, want to just review, year-end review of 6/30/24. Beginning of the year, we had about $10,600,000 in unreserved fund balance. We increased the fund balance due to excess revenue, due to unexpended appropriations, but we also used the $2.4 million that was slated in the budget. $984,000 of that was for just tax relief, general tax relief. Last year at this time, the council voted for an extra $100,000 to be used out of fund balance for tax relief, and then $1.4 million to upgrade the gas pumps at the highway garage. Net decrease of almost $800,000 in fund balance. Our estimated fund balance is $9 million, about 9.8. And then what was voted in, well, what was proposed during the budget was $984,500 of use of fund balance to help offset the tax base. That will leave us with a projected balance of about $8.8 million in our fund balance as of the end of June 30th, 2025. With that, we look at our revenues, and we do have some revenue adjustments. We'd like to revise our interest revenue down $200,000. The reason being is that the Federal Reserve lowered the rate by 50 basis points, and they're supposed to lower the rates 3 or 4 more times in the next coming year to bring it down to about from almost a little over 5% down to about 3.1%. Auto registrations, we budgeted $5.6 million. I'm at a loss.
Every year.
Every year, I'm at a loss. So I increased that by $375,000 to bring it up to $6 million because we surpassed the $6 million mark for 2 years in a row now. And it seems like,
All the new apartments.
yeah, it seems like the
think
car
so.
registrations are there to stay. Ambulance fees, increasing it from just over $1 million to 1.2 million, 1,288,000. That's really where we've been tracking the last couple of years for ambulance revenue. Building permits, just a slight uptick of 175, knowing that if some of the stuff in front of the planning board gets approved, they'll be coming in for some building permits in the next 6 to 8 months. Highway block grant, we got new numbers from the state, increasing that from about 602 to 635,000. Rooms and meals is always the factor that we get in October, so that's to be determined. We're hoping that we get at least 2.6 million. And then tax overlay, we're at 311,000 in the budget, which is a negative on the revenues. Looking to increase that to $750,000. This year we had a couple of big abatements that we gave out, so that would cover those costs of abatements. Net is about $5,000 decrease in revenues. Moving on, just want to show you, I understand this is I looked at it at the screen when I brought it into this document, it was perfect, and then all of a sudden it brought into the document and it just got blurry. So I apologize for it. But really what we're looking at is that in 2023-24, we had a 10.4% percentage of unreserved fund balance. In 24-25, we were estimating to bring that down to an 8.2%. Right now, it looks like we're right around 9.1%, or 974,000. And then for 25-26, we'll be right under 8%, 7.92%. The municipal estimated tax rate, I'd love to say the tax rate's really simple to calculate, and I try to put it in words. And I try to explain it to my staff today, and they're like, just show this chart instead. Because it's really 3 components, but there's really 5 components of the tax rate, but there's really 3 majors. The first major is your appropriations, less your revenues, less anything you want to give back in fund balance. Divided by, then you have to add your overlay and veterans credits back in, and then you divide that by your assessed value. Our assessed values went up slightly this year to almost, they're about $5 billion. So if you take our appropriations that were voted on to include all warrant articles in April, it's $41,989,157. Our estimated revenues revised with the chart that I showed you is $21,135,000. We didn't sell any bonds. Increased tax overlay is $750,000. Property tax relief from fund balance is $984,500. Veterans tax exemption, $891,000. Leaves a property tax levy of $21,500,000 roughly. Divide that by the $4,982,471,004. We come up to a property tax of $4.32. When we did the budget, when we looked at the default budget, that was the number that we gave was $4.32. We're right there, $4.32. If the council would like to add additional money from fund balance to offset taxes, just know that every $50,000 roughly is a penny. I would need a motion to affirm the amount of fund balance, property tax relief from fund balance. So I need the motion, if you do not want to add any more money from fund balance to offset property taxes, I would need a motion to say that we affirm the fund balance amount of $984,500 be used to offset property taxes to come from fund balance.
Which was part of our calculations during.
Yeah.
So moved.
Motion by Nancy Harrington.
Uh,
Go ahead. Well, my understanding is that had been part of the calculation that we had decided upon when we did our budget.
Correct.
So that's why I'm feeling comfort level that we had already decided on that.
That is correct.
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I want to understand, you're bringing this forward, and you gave us some estimates of where we're going to be as far as projected fund balances and whatnot. Are you making any suggestions or recommendations to add additional monies to the estimated, to the reduced for taxes amount? Or because it's looking like you're saying that we'll be at 9% of percentage of unreserved fund balance at the end of the 24-25? Am I, and our target is 8%?
Our target's 8%. Right now, we're at 9.1%. Our target we're going to be down to is 7.92%, which is just under 8%.
25, 26.
A year later?
A year later, yes.
But that's based on this 984.5, or is that?
That's based on, yes.
You've got
that's
25, 26 here, and we're still in 24 right now, so I'm trying to figure out.
Right. Yeah. Correct. The years are off by 1 year, I'm sorry. Looking at this, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be actual 23-24 is the,
Current
as of June 30,
9.1%.
it should be the 9.1%.
Okay, so you're saying that if we don't change anything, the 984,500 that we've already got it is going to bring us down below the 8%?
Correct.
At the end of next year, assuming.
Yeah, because
we
we're.
don't have any overages or any
Correct.
other.
Correct.
Weird things happen throughout the year.
Correct.
That's,
And
it's not an uncomfortable place to be.
no, and when I was at my conference last week, you know, the bond rating agencies talked about 17 to 20%, and I kind of laughed. I said, I'm only, 4 to 8%, and they kind of looked at me cross-eyed when I said that. Bond agency and what's the recommendation is about 17 to 20% of fund balance. That's what they're looking for to give you bond ratings. We do not go out for bond ratings. We use the New Hampshire Bond Bank for our bonding. But, we're got that warrant article that said between 4 and 8%, and we try to get between 4 and 8% and stay there. There are a couple of things that are in the atmosphere that if they do play out, we would have to use some fund balance to pay some of those costs.
I mean, one of the things about we're at 9 now, we pay this 984.5, we're at 7.9, but that assumes no revenue surplus, right? And actuals have proven that, lowest 1.5 million that we're looking at here, previous year was closer to 3 million. So it's fair to assume that we're gonna have some kind of revenue surplus.
Years past, we've been the other way, though. We've been lucky the last couple of years where we've had a revenue surplus. Years past, we've had negative revenue because where our revenues were.
So do you think, based on the revenue projections you just gave us, that we're gonna have potentially negative revenue next year?
On those revenue projections that I gave you, I'm projecting that will be almost spot on.
I mean, I guess I'm comfortable where we're at, just because what you said is, depending on how some things play out, we could end up having to use some fund balance for certain things, and I would rather be in a conservative position than not. But I just think the chances of us landing at 7.92 is, I think that's a very conservative number, and we're gonna be over that. But I'm okay being over that because some of the things we have.
Right, and I would agree with you that we probably will be over the 7.92. However, I have a couple things up my sleeve for next year. One is we need to get the 10-year plan done. So that's a one-time expense. It's like the 53rd week of payroll. It's a one-time expense to use fund balance. We've talked about some other things. You'll see in the capital improvement plan that if we move forward with some of the other things, if we were fortunate to move forward with a safety complex or finding land for a safety complex, we might think of, if everything falls out perfectly, we might think of using some fund balance to buy or offset some of those costs of that property that we're looking to buy, if it works out. But like you do know, there are certain things that could come down, and a big chunk of this $8.8 million could be wiped out.
I think the motion you began and hasn't been seconded yet, I agree with it.
No, Tom seconded for discussion.
I
You did do
seconded
it for
it
discussion.
for
No, we
discussion.
normally don't do that, but I forgot.
Bill used to do it all the time.
It used to drive me crazy.
Well,
No,
I
I
wanted to make
appreciate
sure we had a chance to talk
appreciate
about
it.
it, and I have no
Absolutely.
problem with seconding it, but I wanted to talk about it. And I feel more comfortable now after we have talked about it, because I was misunderstanding some of those columns.
Yeah, and I'm sorry about that.
I know,
That's okay.
that was a
Shouldn't
catch.
do it at 4:30 when you got a 7 o'clock meeting.
All right, so we do have a motion that it's,
Seconded.
everybody's good with it. All right, is there any further discussion you'd like to have? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstained, 700.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. We have the September 12th, 2024 minutes.
Eagle Eye over there. Is there any
Jennifer, we're
changes,
counting on
Eagle
you.
Eye?
She did find one. I love it.
I was just gonna say, we just might make it.
Excuse me.
We need a motion first.
No, yeah.
Do you have any changes that you want to
You're
make?
correct,
Just
and then
one,
we
on
move the
page,
minutes.
page 2, line 60, it says, have the opportunity to put in early bulls should be bills.
Some of these are pretty
Page 2,
funny.
line 60, did you say?
Yeah.
Yes.
Towards the end there,
Yep.
it talks about early bulls.
Yeah, I looked, was it the, 69 looked like 60 to me. It's probably these cheapos aren't working anymore.
That's all I
Very
found.
good.
That's all you had?
I
didn't
move,
have any.
I move to approve the town council meeting minutes for Thursday, September 12th,
Second.
Motion by,
as amended.
motion by Nancy Harrington, seconded by Jennifer. No further discussion. All those in favor of the minutes of September 12th, 2024, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 700. Comments from the press? Comments from the public? You stay here all evening?
John Stalker, 183 Amherst Road. And I was real interested tonight in Nick's presentation, for sure. My background is in telecommunications, and I'm also the president of the Historical Society. And what we offered to our Merrimack seniors, I talked to Lorraine, she's the president, Lorraine Lasade. I said, Lorraine, couldn't we work a little together? We're all in the same age group, you know? She goes, oh, that's a wonderful idea. So all of a sudden, the Merrimack seniors are now coming to our historical society, and it's and it's bumped up our membership and their volunteers, and it's really worked out well. I went back to Lorraine and I said, would anyone in your group, and this is talking about your Comcast cable stuff, this is where this is going, would anyone in your group like any help with a smartphone? So there's 2 of us there that are capable of doing training on the Apple products and the Android products. And she goes, let me ask. And when I used to do training at Verizon, we usually held classes with 8 people, with 2 instructors, because it's very technical. So I said, well, if you can keep it to 8 or 10, that'd be fine. So the first class that came was 15, and then the second class was 20, and the third class, which was last Tuesday, we had to cancel because our Android instructor had COVID. He just came back from a wonderful vacation. So the point I'm trying to make is that the seniors are very aware about their technology. You know, and when I first became president, I said, if we don't play in their playground, they're not going to play with us. And that's where the seniors are. A lot of them have put it off, and they're confused with a clicker. But with instructions coming from people that can help them at a simple level, and sometimes it's not too simple. But they're talking about cutting the cord. So technology is, I just want to make sure you folks understand that the seniors are trying hard to use their phones to communicate with their children, their grandkids or great-grandkids. So I just thought I'd give you a view from the Historical Society's, perspective is where technology is going. And that's all I needed to say. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
Last chance. Let's move along before there's a change in mind.
Before he changes his mind.
Comments
Quick.
from the council. Jennifer.
We received several emails from people concerned about the turnpike noise. Do we have any updates on doing a sound study?
We reached out to NRPC, they do not do that. We are reaching out to 2 or 3 engineering firms to see who specializes in that. Don is working on that. We'll bring back an update for October 10th.
Thank you.
Very good. Any further comments from the council? Seeing none.
Move to adjourn?
Motion by Tom Koenig, seconded by, I didn't hear.
Gee, I wonder who.
Seconded by Andy. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstained, 7-0-0. Thank you, everybody.